Imagine this, what if a single whisper inside the White House could shatter global alliances? 5 minutes ago, in the very heart of power, an uncensored revelation exposed the fragility of international ties. President Emomali Rahmon of Tajikistan sat in the limousine, calm as moonlight in a secluded cabin, while Donald Trump awaited them. But tranquility shattered in an instant. Trump accused Tajikistan of siding too closely with Russia, charging their bond as a threat to freedom. What did Rahmon whisper in response? A defiance that stunned even Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan's delegates, turning allies into wary shadows. Why did they shift nervously, their cheeks flushing with unspoken dread? Stay tuned for the eruption that redefined diplomacy forever. Support this tale with a like and subscribe for more explosive narratives. Let's dive in. Can you picture the air thick with unspoken threats, like the scent of polished wood and uneasy silence filling every breath? When a black limousine ascended Washington's East Bridge, its passenger, President Emomali Rahmon, felt the weight of impending destiny pressing down, as if the White House itself whispered his fate. No mere proximity gripped him. It was an intimate finality, a closing chapter. Rahmon, Tajikistan's steadfast leader, emerged with unbroken poise. Broad shoulders poised under scrutiny, he wore a classic black suit edged with subtle patterns, accented by a light gray tie that fluttered softly in the breeze. His expression was iconic, serene, mirrored in the tinted windows, shielding him from prying eyes. Ready to shatter expectations. The White House loomed with flag-draped columns, winds carrying distant car hums and camera clicks. This wasn't just arrival. It was validation. Inside the limousine, details etched in, Trump's meeting plaque, tight security, the driver sealing doors and shifting gears. But now, focus sharpened. Ahead, where car windows met waiting rooms, fate scripted itself. Rahmon stepped forward with deliberate grace. Behind him, delegates from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan exchanged glances, not overt, but anticipatory. Their attire slightly bolder, cheeks tinged with nervous energy, they remained muted, loyal shadows prepping for the storm unfolding. What secrets do allies hide when under the spotlight, their nerves fraying like twigs in a hurricane? The anteroom gleamed with Central Asian and American flags, chandeliers casting reflections on gleaming door handles. As Rahmon exited, footsteps echoed into silence, doors closing, corridors alive with guard strides and shuffled papers. A sharp intake, preparation, not relief. The meeting erupted unplanned. Donald Trump arrived first, red tie against a crisp white shirt, smile broad yet predatory, exuding star power. "Let's not waste time," he declared, tone light but edged with past victories. Rahmon surveyed the room, juxtaposed leaders, U.S. officials, Central Asian delegations. The distance felt calculated. Between them, a long table bore polished wood veins, glasses, cups of water, and lengthening shadows hinting at turmoil. Trump locked eyes. "Mr. Rahmon, glad you're here. But let's address your ties to Russia." His words sliced through stillness, accusatory. Rahmon felt electricity race his spine, not panic, but hardened resolve. This demanded strategy. He settled, hands relaxed on the table, fingers subtly interlaced. Tension coiled like fumes. A translator murmured overhead. Kazakhstan's delegate twitched, Kyrgyzstan's remained stoic, hands faintly trembling, internal alarms triggered. Who humiliates the powerful with mere words, turning a hall into a battleground of wills? Trump pressed on, equanimous yet pointed. "You're too aligned with Russia. They meddle in your affairs, provoking doubts." His gaze held, fingers drumming the table like silent accusations. Rahmon listened without interruption, face impassive. Delegations mirrored his calm. He paused deliberately, crafting strength without aggression. Through translation, Rahmon's voice softened but firmed. "President Trump, remember this, our link to Russia is geographic reality, not choice. We've witnessed regional upheavals." Gestures opened palms, inviting dialogue. Central Asian allies nodded subtly. Phase 1 ignited. How does one unravel a partner's deception without exposing your own vulnerabilities, the stakes rising like heat in a confined space? Trump recoiled internally, calm rebuttal unexpected, devoid of flair. Not geography, but freedom and sovereignty. His tone theatrical, deepening seriously. The room simmered, chess-like maneuvers emerging. Rachman scanned walls, art concealing unspoken irritability. Beneath calm, explosion readiness lurked. Delegates from Kazakhstan rested hands on laps, Kyrgyzstan's pocketed theirs, signals exchanged. They knew escalation loomed. First volley ended. Next would breach lines. In dim panels and weighted words, where echoes amplify betrayals, truths collide brutally. The windowless room encased heavy walls, concealed acoustics, the near-black table dominating. Ceiling lights slashed shadows across faces. Hidden projectors hummed softly. Diplomacy weighed each syllable heavier than physiques. Rachman faced Trump, sensing not a man, but a staged act. Supreme Court theater unfolded. Walls seemed stricter. Meters apart yet face to face, no retreat. Trump reclined, half-smile masking mirth. We monitor Central Asian developments closely. Tajikistan must distance from Russia's influence, even excess. He swept eyes to Kazakh and Kyrgyz delegates, drawing them in rhetorically. Russia interferes, talks, accords, dependencies. Not partnership, instability. Precise silence gripped. Rachman watched Trump's lips, translator mid-phrase, disbelief rising. Accusation of covert plots stung. When does loyalty demand defiance, the air thickening with metallic tension? Rachman leaned forward, voice steady. Before loyalty, defined too close. We're neighbors, economically, historically, defensively linked. Traditor bridged. You claim dependency, but for us, Russia's ensured decades of stability. Trump, unruffled yet challenged, retorted. Value cooperation, but don't expect us to endorse security at expense of sovereignty. Eyes met, challenge breeding fervor. What sparks when independence clashes heritage, humiliations brewing like unseen fractures? Rachman raised brows. Reject a tried ally because it fits your narrative? Russia's choice, not obligation, keeps distances meaningful. You're remote, unheard in real crises. Kazakh delegate stirred, Kyrgyz nodded imperceptibly. Nonverbal consensus solidified. Trump leaned back, breath quickening. Fair pragmatics aside. Russia menaces globally, in Europe, America. Your stance risks complicity. Rachman tilted head, gaze piercing, disbelieving. Aggressor? Really? Wire pulled taut, room coiling. Unexpected twist, Rachman countered, spotlight shifting. Laughter or fury next? The White House's heart raced. What blowback awaits Trump's assumptions? Allies pondered, storm cresting. Next revelation could fracture continents. Will Rachman's retort humiliate or unite? Plus, the hall pulsed with raw intrigue, every pause a thunderclap awaiting mirror. Delegates' breaths mingled tobacco and cologne, fingers drumming tables like impending verdicts. Unexpectedly, Kazakhstan's rep murmured deliberation, Kyrgyzstan's eyes widened, collusion sensed. Trump stiffened, prepared yet off balance. Fine, debate pragmatics, he conceded faintly. But Russia provokes continents wide. Solidarity stains. Rachman smiled faintly, wire snapping. Aggressor? Define accurately. Trump's mask cracked, room electrifying with unspoken defeats. Could this undermine U.S. gravitas, Rachman's calm exposing flaws? Shock lingered. The endgame approached. What ultimate revelation caps this melee? Global balances teetered, almost irrevocable damage inflicted. 5 minutes ago, an unimaginable event unfolded inside the White House, an encounter that could challenge the very foundations of global alliances. Imagine the tense silence broken only by whispered secrets and the quiet anticipation of what was about to happen. This was no ordinary meeting, it was a moment where history itself seemed to pause. Would anyone be prepared for the shocking reveals about to surface? As the black limousine crept along Washington's East Bridge, a figure stepped out with calm confidence. Rakhmo, the leader of Tajikistan, descended from the vehicle like a shadow merging with the night. His stance was precise, high shoulders, a tailored black suit with subtle patterns, and a light gray scarf that fluttered silently in the breeze. He moved with purpose. Every step echoed with decisive intent. This wasn't just a visit, it was a declaration. The White House loomed ahead, its columns draped in flags, whispering promises of power and secrets. The air was thick with anticipation, as if the very walls leaned in to listen. Inside, the Grand Hall was decorated with flags from Central Asia and the United States. Lights reflected off polished surfaces, creating flickering shadows that danced across the polished wood. When Rakhmo stepped out of the limousine, the heavy doors closed behind him with a definitive clang. The echo of his steps bounced off the walls, filling the corridor, guards, whispers, distant footsteps, all blending into a tense symphony. He took a steady breath, not of relief, but in preparation for what lay ahead. Suddenly, without warning, the meeting began. Donald Trump was the first to speak, a confident smile plastered on his face beneath the crimson gauze of his tie. He looked like a star ready to shine. "Let's not waste time," he declared, his voice light, but beneath it, a flicker of undeniable power lurked. He was no stranger to dominance, no stranger to commanding attention. And yet, a subtle undercurrent hinted at something darker, an invisible force that still reigned beneath his smile. Rakhmo responded calmly, his gaze unflinching. The room was a battlefield of expressions, two long tables, microphones, cups, and shadows lurking just beyond the edge of sight. Trump's eyes locked onto Rakhmo's as he leapt into the heart of the matter. "Mr. Mamali," he began, voice clear and deliberate, "we are glad to see you here. But let's start with what truly concerns us. Your connection with Russia." The words sliced through the silence like a dagger, echoing sharply within the hall's thick walls. Rakhmo felt the weight of those words pressing against him, a heaviness that seemed to run through the very air. There was no fear, only a knowing, an acknowledgement of the storm that was about to ignite. His face remained composed, a subtle smile playing on his lips. He sat with his hands folded, fingers gently intertwined in a circle. The tension was palpable, an electric charge that hinted at a brewing conflict, ready to explode at any moment. And in that silent theater, everyone understood, the real confrontation had yet to begin, and its outcome could reshape the world. What secrets does this conversation hide? Could the next words shift the balance of power forever? Stay tuned, because what follows will reveal deeper truths, truths that could topple nations or forge new alliances in a heartbeat. In the tense silence of the Grand Hall, Rakhmo sensed the weight of unspoken truths pressing heavily upon him. His gaze fixed on the ceiling, he was acutely aware of the silent tension swirling around like an electric storm ready to burst. He knew this moment was more than just diplomatic words, it was a fragile balance hanging by a thread. Suddenly, a subtle movement caught his eye. The delegation from Kazakhstan raised their hands slightly, signaling their internal hesitation. Nearby, the Kyrgyzstan representatives remained calm on the surface, yet their hands betrayed a flicker of nervousness, slightly trembling, fingers faintly stained. Underneath, a silent recognition cloaked their readiness for what was to come. The room's heavy air thickened, as accusations about dependence and influence began to silently swirl among the factions. His pulse quickened as he observed the scene. The hall had transformed into a courtroom where every glance, every breath carried weight. Trump, seated confidently, smiled with a mask of ease, but behind that facade, Rakhmo sensed a storm brewing. The American leader's words, laced with mockery and veiled threats, cut through the silence. "You're too close to Russia," he said, voice steady yet cold, "and you continue to favor Moscow. And we believe Russia meddles in your affairs." The words echoed sharply in the air, like a dagger, each syllable deliberate, each gesture a move in their high-stakes game. Rakhmo remained composed, inwardly calculating each pulse and gesture. The hall felt like a battlefield, calm on the surface but exploding underneath. Both the Kazakh and Kyrgyz delegates held their positions, eyes locked in silent transmission, as if waiting for the right moment to strike or retreat. He knew this was only the beginning, the first move in a dangerous chess match. Then, a tense pause stretched long enough to solidify the unspoken challenge. Rakhmo's voice, calm yet unwavering, broke the silence. "There is no aggression here," he stated firmly. "Only strength backed by purpose." His words resonated through the room, subtle but powerful. The translation completed, he watched Trump carefully, his tone softening but maintaining its resolve. "Remember this, we are connected to Russia. Geography is a fact, not a choice. And we are not just passive observers. We see how the region responds either to the strength or the weakness." With a small, almost inviting gesture of his hands, he seemed to extend an olive branch while signaling readiness for further confrontation. The atmosphere shifted, an unspoken game of power began. Trump, caught off guard by Rakhmo's calm demeanor, unexpectedly found himself at a crossroads. His previous confident wolf-like stance now seemed vulnerable, exposed. The room, once filled with superficial civility, was now thick with anticipation. Each move on this diplomatic chessboard carried potential for escalation or resolution. The tension mounted, and Rakhmo felt the weight of the moment, the delicate balance of control hanging by a whisper. What unseen storm was about to erupt next? The room held its breath, and none of the players dared to blink. Rakhmon's eyes gleamed with unspoken irritation. The walls seemed to pulse with hidden anger. Underneath the calm facade, explosions of tension simmered, ready to erupt. The Kazakh delegate subtly grazed his hand against the table, a silent vow. Kyrgyzstan's envoy remained still, yet his clenched palms betrayed inner storm. They understood the stakes. The opening moves had been made. Now, the real clash loomed. Invisible breezes of doubt filled the chamber, crossing unseen borders. No windows broke the dark expanse. Just heavy panels clinging to the walls, muffled acoustics swallowing secrets, and a table gleaming like midnight ink. Shadows danced on the ceiling, slicing through the air with laser precision, aimed like accusatory spotlights. Soft, indirect glows dimmed the drama, where every syllable carried the weight of empires. Rakhmon stared ahead, piercing the veil. Beyond Trump, a grand play unfolded. Act 1 unfurling. The walls inched nearer, though mere feet separated them from the American leader, an illusion of face-to-face standoffs, no escape route. Trump lounged back, chair creaking under his weight. He spoke slowly, a crooked grin masking his true intent, not warmth but calculated charm. "We monitor Central Asia's shifts closely. Can't you see Tajikistan ensnared by Russia's allure? Too deeply entwined. It's outrageous." He glanced at the Kazakh and Kyrgyz delegates, drawing them into the fray, though his words targeted Rakhmon alone. "Russia's interference isn't overt. Not just military might. Whispers, backroom deals, hidden pacts, total reliance. No true partnership here. Just a recipe for disaster." Silence hung thick, tangible as sweat on skin. Rakhmon paused, watching Trump's lips curl, his hands flutter, awaiting the translator's echo. Disbelief floated unspoken. This wasn't exchange. It was a veiled indictment of treason. Seconds stretched. Then Rakhmon leaned in. "President Trump," he said firmly, yet softly. "Before loyalty debates, define closeness. Neighbors by fate. Bound by trade, history, culture, security. Dependency? How? It secures our decade-long peace." Trump's gaze narrowed, scent of challenge thickening the air. "I acknowledge U.S. cooperation's value. But demanding we discard allies at your whim? For your version of safety? In your fantasy world?" His eyes defied, room growing stifling. "So what? Refuse the family grip of old friends, as night fades the dawn. We're with Russia by choice. Grasping proximity's power. You're distant. Do you hear the wind shift?" Final words sparked Kazakh nods, Kyrgyz head tilts, bare acknowledgements. No grand outbursts. Just observation and memory. Imagine Trump's shock unveiled. What if ejection wasn't victory, but Rahman's trap? Sweat beaded his brow, hands gripping the edge. His mask cracked. Was this man, an ally in disguise, plotting America's retreat? Shocking, right? Could one leader dismantle global giants with mere words? The air thickened, breaths shallow. Clerks fidgeted, papers rustling like distant thunder. How long until truths erupted? Stay tuned, what betrayal lay buried beneath the smiles? As whispers grew, the storm teetered on the edge. Following the tense exchanges, the air thickened with anticipation. The conversation had shifted from diplomatic politeness to a battlefield of unspoken threats. Rahman observed Trump's movements, the clenched fists, the tight jaw, each gesture revealing more than words. A brief silence fell, heavy with unspoken questions. Who truly held the power here? Was it the American leader, or Rahman himself? The room seemed to pulse with danger, every second whispering of imminent conflict. The dialogue had just turned into a battle of wills. Rahman's gaze was steady, unmoved by Trump's probing questions. The U.S. president leaned forward, eyes sharp as knives. He suggested that close ties to Russia made Central Asia's independence fragile. The words echoed like a warning. Are you really free, or just hiding behind a shadow? Rahman felt the weight of those words pressing down, like an invisible hand. His mind raced. Should he reveal his true position, or mask it behind calm composure? Suddenly, Trump's voice cut through the tense silence, firm and unwavering. We're neighbors, he stated flatly, connected through economy, history, and defense. But if you're too dependent on Russia, what does that say about your sovereignty? His words struck like lightning, crackling through the quiet. Rahman clenched his fists on the table, feeling the sting of the accusation. Could he deny it? Could he confront it head-on? The room grew colder, the atmosphere crackling with impending confrontation. Rahman's response was deliberate, measured. He adjusted his posture, realizing that silence might be his strongest weapon now. We're not obliged to follow anyone, he said softly, voice like velvet. We understand the importance of maintaining distance. Russia's influence is a reality, just as yours is. When the game begins, we play our own way. His eyes locked with Trump's, challenging him to break the calm. But the American leader was unyielding, his gaze stormy as he pushed forward, determined to unravel Rahman's hidden plans. Without warning, Trump's tone turned theatrical, almost mocking. You claim independence, yet your actions speak differently, he sneered. Your proximity to Russia raises questions. Are you truly in control, or just pawns waiting for the next move? A subtle smirk played on his lips, but inside, a storm was brewing. Rahman knew that this was the moment where the facade could collapse. It all depended on the next words, whether diplomacy would hold, or the room would erupt into chaos. As the tension escalated, Rahman felt a shiver run down his spine. Every sound, the distant hum of the air conditioning, the faint click of a pen, amplified in the silence. He remembered a quiet moment before the storm, the scent of ink and leather from the table, the touch of the cold glass in his hands. Now, the room was a cage, every second stretching longer. Would he withstand the storm, or fall victim to its fury? Only the next words could decide which way the balance tipped. 5 minutes ago, a moment unfolded inside the White House that could have shattered reality, raw, unfiltered, and without censorship. The world held its breath. In the quiet shadows of Emu Malira, the Tajik leader, the moon cast a calm glow over the room where Donald Trump sat, confident and unshaken. But that serenity was just a fleeting illusion. Suddenly, the calm shattered. Trump, trying to dismiss the tension, attempted to brush away the image of the moon, dismissing Tajikistan's quiet stance as insignificant. Yet, what Rahman revealed was not a simple statement, it was a blow to the very reputation of the United States. What could he have said that caused even delegates from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan to freeze? Stay with us until the end to uncover the shocking truth. Support this story with your voice, subscribe for more revelations, and leave a comment about your own city as we begin. As the black limousine crept up the East Bridge of Washington, an unspoken weight pressed down on its passenger. Rakhmo, leader of Tajikistan, stepped out with a quiet authority that demanded attention. His shoulders were tall, his posture steady beneath a sleek, black classic suit, the fabric patterned with a quiet two-way design, and a faint gray scarf draping his neck. Everything about him radiated purpose. He paused briefly at the window of the grand White House, his reflection merging with the glow of its columns, the flags fluttering in the southern winds. This wasn't just a visit, this was confirmation of something far more profound, a message layered in silence. Inside the limousine, he glimpsed the security signs. Trump's meeting was more than just protocol, it was a precursor to something larger. With deliberate steps, Rakhmo moved forward, straight into the heart of the scene, right before the formidable limousine. Behind him stood delegates from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, their eyes shifting, masks hiding their anticipation. Their costumes, brighter, their cheeks tinged with a hint of nervous energy. They sensed it, something big was about to happen. In the hall, the flags of Central Asia and the United States dominated the space, silent witnesses to the maritime tension brewing. The polished doors reflected the flickering lights, an almost sacred space. As Rakhmo stepped out, the echoes of approaching footsteps and guarded whispers filled the corridor. The air was thick, almost tangible, pulsating with anticipation. He took a deep breath, not a sign of relief but a silent preparation for what was to come. The meeting erupted unexpectedly. Trump, charismatic in his signature red tie and confident smile, was the first to speak, eager to mark the beginning. His words, however, carried an undercurrent, power eager to be asserted. "Let's not waste time," Trump declared, the tone light but edges sharp as a blade. Yet, beneath that, Rommel perceived the dynamic shift, the unmistakable weight of someone who had once been untouchable, now vulnerable. The room, lined with stern faces, silent on the surface, simmered with tension. The U.S. delegation sat at a long polished table, their features tense, palms clasped, waiting. A quick glance from Trump cut straight through the room. "Mr. Malaira, we're glad to see you, but you must start from what calms you," he said, voice loud and unwavering, already probing at the tender chord of Tajik independence, his words like icy daggers. Rakhmo's face remained composed, eyes steady. There was no fear, only restrained resolve. The atmosphere thickened, each side holding their ground as a silent chess match played out. Delegates from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan exchanged subtle signs of readiness, eyes tight, fists slightly clenched. Trump's voice, though calm, carried an ominous tone. "Your close ties with Russia raise questions. The region's reactions reveal a truth you often ignore. Russia's interference isn't just tanks and troops, it's talks behind closed doors, secret deals, covert dependence. That's not partnership, it's control, and it threatens regional stability." A pause. The words hung like sharp knives in the air. Rakhmo didn't flinch. His expression was unaltered, calm but firm. His gaze was like a mirror reflecting deep resilience. The room's silence stretched painfully. Kyrgyzstan gave a slight nod, acknowledging the unspoken challenge. The stage was set for the next move. Suddenly, the air grew heavier. The walls seemed to close in, the only sounds the muffled hum of electronic systems and the faint clicking of cameras. This was not just diplomacy, it was a battlefield cloaked in civility. In the near darkness of this confined space, Rommel sensed the expanding storm, an impending explosion beneath the surface. He refused to shield himself. Instead, he stared directly at the opposition, knowing full well the power dynamics at play. Then, unexpectedly, a voice echoed, calm but commanding, breaking the silence. It was the voice of a second delegation, asserting itself with undeniable strength. "We also value our partnership with Russia," it declared, quiet but resolute. "This isn't dependence. It's calculation." Kyrgyzstan nodded again, more firmly this time. This was real. The game was shifting. Trump, sensing the new tension, relented slightly but pushed harder. His tone became faster, more dangerous. You're playing a game where you lose. America offers opportunity, technology, investments. Russia? It's the past. You keep looking back, forgetting what's ahead. Rakhmo looked him straight in the eyes. His response was calm, measured. The past teaches us. We remember. And we know what it will bring, especially to our countries. He tapped his palm on the table, dark eyes reflecting a quiet storm. Not everyone fears the powerful. In that moment, it was clear, some carry their strength silently, unshaken. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. A signal sounded, a technical interruption, a brief crack in the protocol. The room froze. Eyes flickered, tension hung like a storm ready to break. But no one moved. The silence was deafening, thick as fog. Rommel remained still, watching, waiting for the next move in this high-stakes game. Who truly holds the power here? The answer is concealed behind layers of diplomacy, lies, and unspoken threats. One thing is certain, what unfolds now will define the future of the region. Just imagine this, 5 minutes ago, right in the White House, an uncensored moment unfolded that no one expected. Emomali Rahmon, the calm leader of Tajikistan, sat in a hushed cabin with Donald Trump waiting. But after those 5 minutes, peace shattered. Trump probed why Tajikistan stays so close to Russia. Rahmon's reply? It cut through the air like a dagger, not just words, but a strike at America's own reputation in that very room. What exactly did Rahmon reveal? And how did it leave delegates from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan stunned? Stay tuned for the full shock. This tale of power and deceit will leave you breathless. In the hushed hall of the White House, tension hung thick in the air, like the faint scent of polished wood mixed with nervous sweat. Rahmon didn't laugh or flinch. He simply replied, his voice steady. The past teaches us. And you forget. We know what future storms the past can unleash. Especially in our lands. His eyes gleamed darkly, mirrors that reflected no fear. Not everyone cowers before the mighty. Silence gripped the room, so profound that even the chairs seemed to hold their breath. What twisted accusation might shatter this fragile calm next? President Rahmon leaned in. He could almost feel the electric charge in the atmosphere. Some leaders earn respect because they stand tall. They build walls that endure, even after storms rage and noisemakers fade. But in that chamber, Rahmon's gaze shifted to his allies. They label us loyal. Yet do they grasp the line between loyalty and the weight of shared struggles? His eyes locked on Trump again. This was merely the opening volley. And he braced for the next strike. Time blurred in the darkened room. A starless night where deals shifted and alliances crumbled. What began as talk had morphed into a brutal arena. Diplomacy gave way to raw emotion, mirrored in the cold glass. Rahmon didn't hesitate. He crafted his defense like a master builder, layer by layer. Unyielding. He edged closer, drawing the conversation inward. Dear President, you claim Russia interferes. But America interferes too. The sole difference? Who you deem the villain. The world watches openly. Yet bury truths with lies. And only hard facts endure. His words struck like iron, hammering through the unease. Tajikistan rejects reckless gambles. We refuse to be pawns in others' grand designs. We paid the price of turmoil before. His glance swept to the Central Asian representatives, urging them to witness. Facts speak for themselves. Russia borders us. Neighbors share terrain. Mountains, power lines, bridges, routes. With you, we share mere words. Pax, communiques. The table's surface felt cool under his palms. A tactile reminder of distant divides. But what hidden power play waited beneath these exchanges? Would this twist expose a deeper betrayal? Or lead to an even fiercer clash in the shadows? Rahmon paused, the air thick with unspoken war. The delegates from Kazakhstan tightened their grips, Kyrgyzstan's shadow stirring. What bombshell of influence might detonate next? Would Trump's mask slip, revealing a feud far more personal than politics? Stay alert. The storm brewed, electric and unseen. 5 minutes ago, a moment of raw honesty unfolded right within the walls of the White House, no censorship, no pretenses. A truth so shocking that it could shake the very foundation of diplomatic norms. Imagine a scene where the world's most powerful leader faces a bold challenger, and everything is about to change forever. In the luxury of Emo Malira, the sky was serene, a gentle moon casting soft shadows inside the cabin where Donald Trump sat with his usual confident smile. But that tranquility was only the calm before a storm. Just moments later, everything shattered. Trump tried to dismiss the visitor, Rakhmo, the leader of Tajikistan, warning him that Tajikistan's alliance with Russia made travel too dangerous. But Rakhmo's reply was unlike anything expected. He didn't offer a typical diplomatic response, he struck like a lightning bolt, tearing into the reputation of the United States with words that echoed through the Grand Hall. What exactly did Rakhmo reveal? And why did his words ripple so intensely that even delegates from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan suddenly shifted their gaze? Stay until the end, what unfolds next will leave you breathless. The scene shifted to the towering East Bridge of Washington, where Rakhmo stepped out of a sleek black limousine with quiet authority. His presence was commanding, broad shoulders, poised gaze, clad in a sharp classic suit with subtle patterns that whispered of dignity and power. Every step he took was deliberate, each movement resonating with purpose. As he approached the White House, the familiar flutter of anticipation filled the air. A corridor of polished reflective surfaces and guarded whispers welcomed him. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with silent expectations. The room was decorated with flags from Central Asia and the United States, symbols of alliance or tension. The moment was palpable, vibrating with unresolved tension. When Rakhmo appeared, Trump greeted him with a confident smile, but beneath that facade lay a quiet menace. The first exchange was a game of nerves. Trump, confident as ever, wasted no time. "Let's not waste time," he said, casually, as if dismissing a minor dispute. Yet the weight of his words was heavy, an unspoken warning, a challenge to the new visitor. Then, the discussion turned serious. Trump, with a sharp, almost invasive gaze, referenced Tajikistan's ties with Russia, hinting at a deeper concern. "We are glad to see you here, but let's be clear," Trump's voice boomed through the room, "your connection with Russia worries us." The words hung in the air, sharp and unforgiving. Rakhmo countered calmly, his voice steady, but with an edge, each phrase layered with meaning. "Our geography isn't a choice," he said. "It's a reality we cannot change. We see how the region responds to strength, or the lack of it." His words cut through the silence, daring anyone to deny the truth. Trump's reply was icy, an attempt to assert dominance, but Rakhmo met it with quiet resolve. "We are neighbors," he said, "connected by history, economy, and shared borders. Do you accuse us of dependence? That's a misconception. We choose our alliances carefully. We value stability, not control." The tension escalated as the room became a chessboard. Trump's attempts at diplomacy sounded more like threats, pushing the boundaries of trust. "Russia is not just tanks and military moves," he warned. "It's secret talks, hidden agreements, and dependencies. Real partners act independently." Rakhmo's eyes hardened. "Dependence isn't a weakness," he responded. "It's a choice to survive in a volatile world. Our borders are secure, our sovereignty intact. We do not threaten others, we stand firm, respecting our space." His words painted a stark contrast, confidence versus intimidation. Suddenly, Trump's tone shifted, voice dropping into a dismissive chuckle. "You say alliances are about loyalty," he sneered. "But your region seems to lean toward pragmatism, away from ideology. Are you afraid of choosing sides? Or is it that your neighbors are waking up to the truth?" Rakhmo's reaction was calm but intense. "We deal in reality," he said softly, "not illusions. We offer investment, technology, development. What does Russia offer? No words, no promises, only dependence and control. We prefer dialogue, mutual respect, liberty. When things go awry, we call Moscow. Or do we stand tall alone? The room fell into a tense silence. Trump's face betrayed frustration, yet he masked it behind a veneer of bravado. His final words hinted at a looming storm, yet behind his eyes, a flicker of uncertainty surfaced. In that moment, the truth was undeniable: Russia's influence is embedded deep within the region. Its shadow stretches beyond tanks, through secret deals, strategic dependencies, silent alliances. The question remains, will the world recognize this? Or will it continue to play the game of illusions? As the last echoes faded, the world seemed to hold its breath. A silent acknowledgement: this confrontation was only the beginning, and the future of Central Asia hangs in the balance, teetering on the edge of unseen powers and relentless ambitions. 5 minutes ago, chaos erupted right inside the walls of the White House, where secret truths were about to unfold without censorship. In the dimly lit room, tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Outside, the moon cast a pale glow over a calm yet ominous landscape. Inside, a storm was brewing. In this tense atmosphere sat Donald Trump, already prepared for the unexpected. The room was filled with the faint hum of hushed voices, the shuffling of papers, and the sharp scent of tension in the air. Suddenly, everything shifted. The scene was set when the leader of Tajikistan, Rakhmo, stepped out of a black limousine on Washington's East Bridge. His calm but confident stride betrayed nothing of the storm inside him. Clad in a tailored black suit with intricate patterns, he resembled a figure of quiet power. The distant flurry of flags fluttered in the wind as the White House loomed behind him, silent and imposing. This wasn't just a visit, it was a statement, a declaration that something monumental was about to happen. Inside, the meeting was about to begin, and the atmosphere was charged, almost electric. Trump, with his signature confident smile, welcomed Rakhmo with a nod, but beneath that composure lurked a world of unspoken threats. "Let's not waste time," Trump said, voice light but carrying a hidden weight. The room's silence was deafening. Then, Trump threw out an opening line that resonated like thunder: "We're glad to see you here, but we need to address your ties with Russia." His words hit hard, slicing through the calm like a blade. The air grew heavier as Rakhmo met his gaze, unflinching. The tension was palpable. Behind Rakhmo, delegates from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan shifted slightly, their expressions tight, their hands clenched but poised. Their eyes flickered with a silent warning: they knew what was at stake. The room felt claustrophobic, as if the walls themselves were leaning in, eager to witness the showdown. Trump's words echoed louder: "You're too close to Russia, and we believe Russia meddles in national affairs." The accusation hung in the air, thick and dangerous. Rakhmo kept his composure, his eyes steady and calm, as if he had anticipated this. "We are neighbors," he replied evenly. "Geography is a fact, not a choice." His voice hovered just above a whisper, yet it cut through the veneer of diplomacy. The room seemed to tighten, every sound amplified: the faint scrape of chairs, the distant rustling of papers, even the slow beating of hearts. Trump pressed further, pushing Rakhmo to explain, casting doubt with every word. Yet, Rakhmo responded with unwavering confidence: "Our connection to Russia is a matter of history and geography, not dependence. We observe how regional forces react to power or its absence." The silence grew, stretched thin with anticipation. The tension was like a cord about to snap. Then, in a calculated move, Rakhmo gestured lightly, inviting dialogue. His calm was a weapon, calm before the storm. Trump, momentarily caught off guard, hesitated, feeling the undercurrent of a brewing explosion beneath the surface of political decorum. Suddenly, the room transformed into a battleground of words and subtle signals. Trump, with a half-smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, tried to maintain control. "This is about freedom," he declared, voice theatrical but underlined with threat. "It's about sovereignty." His gestures, a measured nod, a brief glance at the ceiling, betrayed his attempt to mask underlying unease. But beneath that civility, danger lurked. The room's walls seemed to close in, the air thickening into an almost tactile presence. Every movement, every word, felt like a chess move in this high-stakes game. Trump's hand moved subtly, as if trying to regain control over a volatile situation. Rakhmo sensed the unrest. His face remained composed, but his eyes burned with quiet resolve. When he spoke again, his words carried the weight of defiance. We do not interfere, we observe. But regions react to force, or the lack of it. The room held its breath. The final exchange was imminent. Trump's voice turned colder, more deliberate. You call us interference, but it's Russia that influences everything. From Europe to our borders. His words were a challenge, a provocation meant to unsettle. Yet, Rakhmo's reply was calm, steady, yet edged with steel. We are neighbors. Dependence is a fact, not a choice. We value distance and sovereignty. America's presence in this region is not by chance but by choice. A tense silence followed. Trump's face darkened slightly, his mind racing for a response. The unspoken tension was deafening, like a distant storm about to break. Then, with a slow, deliberate movement, Trump signaled the end of the discussion. His glance flicked from Rakhmo to the room. The unspoken question hung in the air: who truly holds power here? Who is controlling this game? An unexpected twist emerged as Rakhmo's voice cut through the silence. And who determines the threat? He asked softly. His words hung like a dagger, challenging the assumptions of the room. The question was simple but profound: is the danger real, or just a shadow cast by fear? The room fell into a tense stillness. The answer could change everything. The storm had only just begun. In the heated exchange moments ago, Emomali Rahman challenged the very definition of threats. Who decides what counts as aggression? Why does Russia's defense become invasion, while America's mirrors nobility? The room hung on that double standard, a water bottle slipping from a startled hand, its lamp flickering brighter in the stunned silence. What if one man's alliance is another's empire's noose? Imagine the scent of polished oak and fresh coffee lingering in the air, sharp against the rising tension, like the metallic tang of a storm about to break. Emomali Rahman leaned forward, his voice steady as mountain stone. The sovereign path of our nation. It's carved by our own hands, not yours. Your analysts, your security experts, your corporations marching like an army into our lands. Donald Trump crossed his arms over his chest, fingers drumming softly against his jacket. The fabric rustled, a subtle armor bracing for impact. But Rahman didn't flinch. He paused, letting the words settle like dust after an earthquake. You speak of interference with grave responsibility. Why? When your administration plants flags deepest in our snowy peaks, our gas fields, our bustling markets, our vital geopolitical crossroads. Every head in the room snapped up, eyes locking on Rahman. The sunlight slanted through the curtains, casting harsh shadows that made the air feel thicker, heavier. Was it mere chance? Or deliberate design? He posed the question like a dagger's edge, his tone slicing clean. The silence stretched, broken only by the faint hum of the air vents and the shallow breaths of aides pressed against the walls. Trump shifted, his chair creaking under the weight of unspoken retorts. Yet he held back, lips parting but no words escaping. Rahman raised his palm, not dramatically high, no flourish, just an extension of his calm resolve, smooth as river-worn pebble. We know you well, Mr. President. Politics isn't charity. You arrive here chasing horizons, resources to claim, control to seize, fresh markets to conquer. It's no sin. It's the empire's raw logic. But please. He trailed off, eyes narrowing with a quiet fire. Don't cloak it as selfless protection. Trump's face tightened, surprise flickering like a shadow across his features. Do you dare label the United States as exploiters? No, Rahman replied, his voice even, unyielding as forged steel. I merely name realities as they stand. The Kazakh delegate stifled a breath, lips twitching in what might have been a suppressed grin, his tie suddenly feeling too tight against his collar. The Kyrgyz representative sank deeper into his seat, fingers gripping the armrest, absorbing the words like a spectator at a riveting play, captivated, wordless. Impressive, Rahman pressed on, shifting closer, the table's cool glass surface reflecting his determined gaze. You discuss our choices. But true choice blooms free from coercion. What do we witness instead? Your sanctions biting like winter frost, your diplomatic notes like chains, your barriers closing paths. Your declarations that siding with them means opposing you. Forgive the bluntness. But this isn't alliance. It's ultimatum, pure and cold. Trump exhaled sharply, the sound echoing like a stifled thunderclap, his hand brushing a water bottle that wobbled precariously on the table's edge. The liquid inside sloshed, droplets beating on the glass, mirroring the sweat of fraying nerves. What hidden leverage would shatter the fragile peace next? 5 minutes ago, a shocking event unfolded right inside the heart of the White House, an unscripted moment where nothing was censored, revealing raw truths. Imagine the tension, the palpable silence shattered by a confrontation that could redefine global alliances forever. What exactly happened? Stay tuned to find out. As the black limousine approached the Eastern Bridge, a figure emerged with unmistakable confidence, Rakhmo, the leader of Tajikistan. His presence exuded calm, yet under the surface, a storm was brewing. Dressed impeccably in a classic dark suit, his shoulders squared, he moved with a quiet authority. Everything about him suggested he was here for a purpose, an unspoken challenge in his steady stride. The car stopped, he stepped out into the brisk Washington air, mingling with the flags fluttering in the breeze, symbols of unity and conflict intertwined. Inside, the room awaited, charged with anticipation, as delegates from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan watched with cautious curiosity. Their expressions hinted at unease, prepared for what was to come. The hall was filled with the scent of polished wood and the faint hum of whispered conversations. The moment was defining. Suddenly, the door swung shut behind Rakhmo, sealing him into a chamber where diplomacy was transformed into a battlefield. The tension was nearly tangible, an electric charge before the storm. President Trump sat across the table, white shirt immaculate, eyes sharp and piercing. He broke the silence with a confident smile, signaling the start of negotiations. But beneath that veneer, a deeper power simmered, a relentless force that had already shaken the room. Trump leaned forward, voice steady but edged with authority, addressing the Tajik leader directly. "Let's not waste time," he declared sharply. The room hushed. The weight of his words struck like thunder, the first clash in this silent war of words. Rakhmo met his gaze evenly, unshaken. Behind him, delegates from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan stiffened, their faces mask-like, ready for the storm. Trump didn't conceal his assumptions, accusing Tajikistan, accusing Russia, casting shadows over the region's fragile stability. His words echoed through the hall, loud and uncompromising. Your connection with Russia, a phrase heavy with accusation, raises questions. The air grew thick with tension. Every breath seemed to echo the unspoken challenge, who would blink first? Rakhmo responded with extraordinary composure, voice calm yet filled with an unwavering firmness. He did not flinch under Trump's glare. Instead, he laid bare a stark truth: our geographic ties are not a choice, but a reality. We are not just passive observers, we witness how regional dynamics shift, force, or the absence of it, shapes our future. His words hovered in the tense silence, a calculated calm before the inevitable storm. The delegation officials exchanged glances, acknowledging the unspoken message: this game is far from over. Trump's eyes narrowed. He shifted in his seat, voice gaining a theatrical note. Your proximity to Russia, he said, your dependence, these are not just facts. They're risks, threats, and vulnerabilities that undermine regional stability. His words cut through the room like a blade. Yet, Rakhmo's gaze remained steady, an anchor in the sea of accusations. Geography, he said softly, is not a matter of choice but of circumstance. Our neighbors, our history, these dictate our position. A pause ensued, the silent battle of wills reaching a boiling point. The other delegations were shifting, their composure strained. The atmosphere thickened, a brewing storm about to burst. Suddenly, the room darkened, shadows creeping across the walls as if warning of the explosion to come. Walls seemed to close in, muffling sounds, only the distant echo of footsteps and the faint rustle of papers breaking the eerie silence. It was a space where diplomacy morphed into a silent duel. Rackmo's gaze never faltered, he stood like a pillar amid chaos. He saw not just Trump but the entire scene, an impending clash of worlds. Meanwhile, the American leader leaned back, attempting to mask his irritation, but his clenched fists betrayed him. Every gesture transmitted a challenge: who would blink first? Who would surrender? In this charged atmosphere, Trump finally broke the silence, voice controlled but demanding. "We are watching your region closely," he said, "and we see what's happening. Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, you're caught between regional giants." His words felt cold, calculated, a chess move. Rackmo's calm persisted, unwavering. "We are not pawns," he declared. "Our interests are not threats but defenses, against external chaos, against destabilization." His tone hinted at a quiet defiance. A declaration of sovereignty. The room became a mirror of the silent war, each nod, each breath a sign of the rising tension. Trump adjusted his posture, eyes fixed on the Tajik leader. His next words hinted at a deeper threat, an accusation veiled behind diplomatic language: Russia's influence isn't just subtle. It's suffocating. It meddles, destabilizes, and manipulates. Your region is not independent, it's a puppet stage. The room thickened with unspoken outrage, the walls seemed to pulse with suppressed anger. Rackmo responded with deliberate calm, voice steady, each syllable a calculated step in this dangerous dance. "We are neighbors," he said softly. "Connected by history, economy, and culture. Your words imply dependence, but for us, it's about mutual respect, not control." His words left a heavy silence, each sound a challenge to the American narrative. Trump's face darkened. He pressed on, voice rising slightly, emphasizing his point. "Dependence is not partnership. It's vulnerability. Without real independence, your region remains unstable, dangerous for everyone." Rackmo's reply was measured but resolute: "Our alliance with Russia is based on necessity, not choice. We value our sovereignty. Our borders are protective walls, not chains." Then he paused, long enough to let the message sink in. "The world is watching. The game you play, either with us or against us, has consequences." The final act approached. Trump, visibly angered yet trying to maintain composure, pushed back with one last threat: "Recall that aggression is often cloaked as diplomacy. The world recognizes the truth: those who provoke, threaten, and destabilize. Remember that." For a moment, silence reigned. Then Rackmo responded simply, voice calm but powerful. "The only threat here is empty words. Real action speaks louder than words. And we trust actions more than threats." His words cut through the tension, leaving Trump silent, defeated in this silent duel. What's the real meaning behind these words? Are we witnessing a turning point, an unspoken declaration of independence from external influences? Or is this just the beginning of a dangerous struggle that will reshape the region's future? The room remained shadowed, the silence heavy with unspoken threats. And outside, a storm still looms, waiting to see which side will step forward first. 5 minutes ago, an extraordinary event unfolded in the heart of the White House, a moment where censorship was lifted, revealing raw truth. Inside the calm of Emo Malira's delegation, tension thickened like fog. It was a scene charged with impending conflict. In the dimly lit hall, Donald Trump sat confidently, a clear picture of power. Yet, beneath his composed exterior, an undercurrent of anticipation simmered. Suddenly, the silence shattered, a verbal blow that struck at the very foundation of the United States' reputation. What was said? Why did a single statement cause such turmoil? Stay until the end, because what transpired next will shake your understanding of global diplomacy. As the black limousine approached the Eastern Bridge of Washington, a man stepped out with the quiet certainty of a man on a mission. Rakhmo, the leader of Tajikistan, exuded confidence. His tall stature, clad in a classic, sharply tailored black suit, seemed carved from resolve. His expression reflected composure, but behind that facade, a fierce determination burned. His face appeared in the window of the limousine, a symbol of silent authority. The scene wasn't just a visit, it was a bold assertion of independence and strength. The moment he stepped onto the grand entrance of the White House, the air shifted. Delegates from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, standing behind him, sensed the gravity. Their eyes flicked quickly, observing every detail. Mustering anticipation, they dressed their expressions carefully, brighter clothes, clenched cheeks, readiness for what would unfold. The flags of Central Asia fluttered in the breeze, a silent witness to the tension. Inside, the polished corridor echoed with the sounds of footsteps, guards' boots, and the subdued hum of anticipation. Rakhmo took a deep breath and moved forward, each step deliberate. The grand doors closed behind him, sealing him into a space where every sound intensified, the heartbeat of diplomacy itself. The room was an arena, walls lined with heavy panels that muffled the outside world. Silence reigned, heavy and suffocating, broken only by faint whispers of history present in every corner. He was calm, almost stoic, ready for what was about to come. Suddenly, the room's atmosphere was shattered. Donald Trump was the first to speak, his confident tone cutting through the silence. His smile was military precise, charismatic but guarded. His words were sharp. "Let's not waste time," he said, eager to begin. But beneath that, a storm was brewing. The power behind his voice hinted at something more, an undercurrent of dominance. Rakhmo responded with equal composure. In the center of the room, the leaders faced each other across a massive table, symbols of authority and resolve. Trump's gaze locked onto Rakhmo's, a challenge more than a greeting. The American leader broke the ice. "Mr. Malira, I am pleased to see you here, but you must first address your ties with Russia." His words echoed, bold and unflinching. Rakhmo's face remained unflinching, but beneath his calm exterior, a storm was brewing. He saw the immediate shift in the room. Kazakhstan's delegation subtly raised a hand. Kyrgyzstan's officials kept their composure but registered the tension. These signals weren't subtle anymore. Trump's words accused, "Your proximity to Russia raises serious questions about your independence." His voice was warm, yet accusatory, each word carefully chosen. Rakhmo listened in silence. No anger, no defensiveness. Just quiet focus. His fingers slowly closed into a circle on the table, stable. The hall felt like the calm before a storm, every eye fixed on him. An existential question hovered. How could he reply without losing face or dignity? The silence stretched. Then, Rakhmo's voice cut through. Calm, steady, decisive. "President Trump, our connection with Russia is a geographical fact, not a sign of weakness," he declared. The words echoed with conviction. "We see how our region responds to strength, whether it's through force or the absence of it. That's the reality we face." His hand gestured outward, inviting dialogue. The room felt tense but open, as if every participant was holding their breath. Trump's expression hardened slightly. The game was a chess match now. Every movement, every word, was carefully calculated. The leaders from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan sat still, awaiting the next move. The space between them and the American president felt electric, a battlefield of words, options, and deeply rooted interests. Suddenly, the atmosphere grew darker. The room's walls seemed to inch closer. Walls layered with shadows and silent histories. The lighting dimmed, casting a foreboding glow. Every word, weighty with history, seemed to resonate in the stagnant air. The tension was almost visible, thick enough to cut with a knife. At the center, Rakhmo remained composed, but within him a fierce determination simmered. The dialogue deepened. Trump's tone shifted, more theatrical, yet serious. His words hinted at a different game, a battle where diplomacy became a strategic war. Every gesture, every pause was scrutinized. The room was a chessboard, each piece moved with precision. Rakhmo watched, unwavering, sensing the storm brewing beneath Trump's facade. Then, a break. Silence fell again. The room was a trap, each second stretched like elastic. Inside, Rakhmo saw the true challenge, not just words, but the essence of control, influence, and power. His gaze remained fixed, steady, yet inwardly alert. This was a battleground of wills, with each leader playing their hand carefully. Suddenly, Trump shifted. His chair tilted back slightly. His expression was a mask of calm, but the fire in his eyes betrayed the true intensity. "Let's be pragmatic," he said slowly, voice deliberate. "Russia isn't only in you. It's in Europe. It's in every corner of the world, provoking, threatening. Your behavior, your alliances, will be judged as a sign of allegiance." He paused, letting his words hang in the air like a loaded gun. Rakhmo's response was calm but direct. His face was barely moved. "The aggressor?" he echoed softly. Silence filled the space. The question hung like a specter. Who was really pulling the strings? Who was truly behind the scenes manipulating this game of diplomatic chess? The truth was more shocking than anyone expected. The room's energy grew heavier. Every player felt the weight of invisible forces, unseen but felt deeply. The battleground of words was no longer just diplomatic discourse. It was a revelation of a deeper conflict, a hidden war behind the scenes. As the room's tension reached its peak, one question loomed large: who really controls this game? And what is the price of this dangerous power play? 5 minutes ago, a shocking event unfolded right inside the White House, an incident so raw and unfiltered that it could only be seen without censorship. In the quietude of Anne Malira's room, beneath a calm moon, Donald Trump was already seated, awaiting what was to come. But that serenity shattered in an instant. The moment Trump attempted to dismiss the tension, to brush off concerns about Tajikistan's quietness in connection with Russia, the air shifted dramatically. Rakhmo's response was an invisible blow, an attack not with words, but with power and confidence that echoed louder than any shouting. What exactly did Rakhmo reveal? Why did even delegates from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan suddenly become tense? Stay tuned to this story, because what follows is beyond your wildest expectations. Let's begin. As a black limousine edged onto Washington's East Bridge, the passenger inside felt more than just proximity to the imposing architecture, they sensed its very presence. A force rooted deep in history, in resilience. Rakhmo, leader of Tajikistan, stepped out of the vehicle with a quiet, commanding authority. His shoulders squared with purpose. Clad in a tailored black suit with subtle patterns woven into the fabric, he carried himself like a man prepared for battles unseen. His expression betrayed no emotion, only readiness. He moved towards the White House, silent as a shadow, but every step echoed with significance. The surrounding flags fluttered in the breeze, whispering of alliances and history. It was more than a visit, it was a statement. A firm declaration of independence amid the swirling currents of global influence. Inside the limousine, Rakhmo briefly glanced upon the badge signaling the high-level meeting with Donald Trump. Yet, now, his focus was elsewhere. The doorway swung open, and he stepped into a hall thick with expectation. The eyes of delegation officials from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan flicked nervously, their expressions masking a brewing storm. This was a moment of confrontation. The hall was decorated with the flags of Central Asia and the United States, an uneasy border drawn in symbols rather than borders. Light reflected off polished floors, but tension sat heavy. In the silence, you could almost hear the breath of anticipation. Rakhmo's presence silenced the room. As the doors closed behind him with a decisive click, the whispers and footsteps faded to echoes. He inhaled deeply, preparing himself for what was to come. It wasn't relief he sought, it was composure, readiness for the storm. Suddenly, without warning, the conversation ignited. Trump, confident and beaming, took the lead. Let's not waste time, he declared, a bright smile lighting his face, masking his underlying intent. Yet beneath that smile, a palpable current of power pulsed. The room hung in suspended anticipation. Trump's eyes locked onto Rakhmo, and he spoke, his words clear and resonant, slicing through the silence. "Mr. Malira, we're pleased to see you here," he said, voice steady but unmistakably commanding. "But let's start with the truth, your connection with Russia. Don't try to hide it." The weight of that statement hit the room like a thunderclap. Rakhmo's face remained impassive, but inside, a storm raged. The air grew thick, an unspoken challenge amid the formal silence. He sat at the table with poised fingers, the tension taut. Behind his calm exterior, tension tightened every muscle. Kazakhstan's delegate shifted slightly, a subtle gesture betraying unease. Kyrgyzstan's representative, more composed, kept his face serene but his hands betrayed a flicker of nervousness. Trump pressed on, voice even, but edged with warmth. "You're too close to Russia. That's evident. We believe it meddles in your internal affairs. This raises serious questions about your independence." The room felt as if it had become a tribunal. Every word weighed heavily, each gesture a piece of a deadly chess game. Rakhmo listened without interruption. His secrecy was evident, neither tension nor irritation marred his face. He studied his opponents, reading their every move. A long pause followed. It stretched like an invisible line drawn across the room. The silence was deafening. Then, softly, Rakhmo responded. "President Trump, our relationship with Russia is rooted in geography, not choice," he said, voice calm but powerful. "We are not mere spectators. We observe how our region responds, whether through strength or weakness." He spread his hands slightly, inviting dialogue, yet warning of the consequences of ignoring reality. The scene sharpened. The room felt smaller, walls closing in. It was a chessboard of diplomacy, each move deliberate, each word a potential flashpoint. Trump stared, unflinching, seeking a crack in the armor. But the calm in Rakhmo's eyes told a different story, one of resilience and determination. The tension escalated as the delegation from Kazakhstan subtly shifted, their eyes darting around. Kyrgyzstan's delegation, similarly guarded, was ready for the next move. This was just the beginning. The room transitioned into an environment thick with unspoken threats and unyielding resolve. Heavy panels muffled the outside world. No windows, only the oppressive silence of anticipation. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted, and almost theatrical lighting covered draped the space, casting shadows that danced like silent sentinels. Here, words weighed more than actions. Rakhmo's gaze remained fixed, observing the scene as if on stage. It was the opening act of a larger drama, where diplomacy morphs into a game of strategy and survival. In the silence, a new chapter began to unfold, one that would expose the true nature of power, loyalty, and the heavy price of independence. What secret does Rakhmo hold? And how far will the game of influence go before the final move? Stay with us, because this story is only just beginning. 5 minutes ago, a moment of silence filled the White House. A shock was brewing, unspoken but felt intensely. Now, everything was about to change, a revelation that could shatter perceptions. A truth hanging in the air, waiting to explode. The scene opens with Rakhmo, the bravest leader of Tajikistan, stepping out of a sleek black limousine. His presence alone commands attention, a tall figure in a classic dark suit, sharp and confident, with a gaze that pierces through the very fabric of the moment. The flags flutter as the wind whispers secrets of power and danger. This isn't just a visit, it's a declaration. A sign that the quiet before the storm has ended. As Rakhmo approaches the grand entrance, the tension is palpable. Behind him, delegates from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan appear like silent shadows, their expressions calm, but their eyes betray a storm of expectations. This gathering isn't about diplomacy anymore. It's about confrontation, each step echoing on polished floors, every breath thick with anticipation. What's to come will change everything. Inside, the room hums with silent intensity. A heavy silence hangs, broken only when Trump, confident and beaming, greets with a quick, practiced smile. He gestures to begin, his voice smooth but steeled with underlying authority. This isn't just talk, it's a chess match. Every word, a move. Every glance, a signal. Suddenly, Trump's first words cut through the air, direct and unapologetic. He asks about Tajikistan's connections, implying a hidden alliance with Russia. The question hangs like a threatening shadow. A hush falls. Rakhmov's face remains composed, calm, almost cold, but inside, a current of resolve is rising. The room tightens as the debate begins to spark. Trump presses further, his tone layered with subtle accusations. Dependence, control, influence, every term loaded with danger. The American leader's voice echoes in the chamber, a mixture of confidence and challenge. Rakhmov's fingers tighten on the table, his gaze unflinching. He understands this game, each word a weapon, each silence a strategy. The tension swells as the hall transforms into a battlefield of words and wills. In that moment, the atmosphere shifts. The delegates from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan hesitate. They sense the stakes. Are they witnesses or pawns in this high-stakes drama? The air thickens with unspoken threats. The unrelenting game of power continues, sharp, dangerous, and relentless. Suddenly, a new question looms: will they reveal the truth, or is this just the beginning of a secret war that could erase borders and reshape alliances forever? The room falls silent again. The shadows stretch longer. Behind the calm surface, an erupting storm threatens to burst through. Who is truly in control? Who holds the key to the future? And the most shocking question of all, who is really the aggressor in this silent war of worlds? In the charged air of the White House chamber, alliances shifted like shadows under a flickering lamp. No official words had sealed it yet, but the mood turned heavy, inescapable. Emomali Rahman scanned every face around the table. The Soviet Union? It wasn't merely tanks or decrees. No, it was that unbreakable bond, the shared pulse of millions woven into one vast fate. What if one leader's deepest memory shatters the room's fragile peace, exposing wounds America never fully grasped? Imagine the scent of polished oak tables mingling with the faint, acrid tang of strained breaths, as words hang like storm clouds ready to burst. Trump leaned forward, his fingers drumming softly on the cool glass edge, the subtle clink echoing like a distant warning bell. He set it down firmly, the liquid inside untouched now, rippling slightly from the motion. He wasn't sipping victory anymore. He was absorbing the shift, eyes narrowing under the soft glow of overhead lights that cast long shadows across the ornate carpet. Rahman's voice rose then, not aimed at one man, but filling the entire space, like a storyteller drawing in listeners around a hearth fire. The warmth of his tone clashed with the room's chill, the faint hum of air conditioning underscoring every pause. My forebears drew their first breaths under the Soviet banner. My own children stand tall as Tajiks, free in their homeland. Yet I refuse to flee those shadows. I embrace them. Why? A soul stripped of its origins is mere flesh, hollow and adrift. A nation without its scars? Just barren land, waiting to crumble. The hush that followed wrapped the chamber like thick fog rolling in from the Potomac. But this quiet? It pulsed with weight, alive and electric. No longer a void of unease, it hummed with resolve, the kind that sparks before a pivotal choice. Imposing. Devoid of raw fury. Yet it crackled, inevitable as thunder on the horizon. You could almost taste it, the dry anticipation coating your tongue, the subtle creak of leather chairs as bodies tensed involuntarily. Tension lingered, sure, but it transformed. No longer a barbed wire fence. Instead, it breathed, vibrant and urgent, like the first rush of adrenaline before a duel. Trump's posture stiffened, his tie suddenly feeling tighter against his collar, the fabric whispering against skin. He sat there, mask of composure cracking just a fraction, jaw set, but eyes wide with the unfamiliar sting of reversal. America had always scripted history's grand arc, hadn't it? Dictating narratives from afar. Now? This living voice, raw and unfiltered, delivered a countertale that pierced posters and propaganda alike. The pause stretched, taut as a violin string, broken only by the sharp rustle of papers, one aide's hand sliding documents across the table, the sound slicing the air like a knife through silk. Trump seized the moment, his chair scraping faintly against the floor, signaling the pivot. The air grew thicker, laced with the subtle polish of authority and the metallic edge of rebuttal. History isn't some sentimental root to cling to, he began, voice steady but laced with precision, each word landing like stones in still water. It's a ledger of duties unpaid. If we're romanticizing that old empire as some benevolent giant, let's peel back the layers. It inked the deal with fascists, the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, sealing fates in secret ink. It stormed into Poland, boots crushing borders without mercy. And the war? It didn't stumble in as prey. No, it stepped onto the board as a calculated king, maneuvering for dominance. His delivery? Cool as marble, arguments stacking like unassailable evidence in a courtroom. No raised volume, no dramatic flair. Just the relentless drip of truth, clinical and dissecting, leaving no room for evasion. The Kyrgyz delegate flinched visibly, his fingers whitening on the armrest, the soft leather yielding under pressure. Kazakhstan's envoy remained stone still, breath shallow and measured, the faint scent of cologne cutting through the room's growing staleness. But Rahman? He tilted forward ever so slightly, the light catching the subtle lines of focus on his face, ears attuned without a flicker of retreat. He granted Trump the floor, uninterrupted, the silence between them humming with unspoken strategy. Fear? Absent. Only the quiet steel of one who knows the board's true tilt. As Trump's final fact echoed, fading into the chamber's heavy drapes, Rahman's gaze sharpened, hinting at a revelation that could redefine alliances forever. Would history's ghosts finally force a hand, or ignite an unforeseen alliance? In the heart of the White House, the tension simmered like a storm about to break. Trump had just accused Tajikistan of dangerous ties with Russia, hinting at dependence and hidden threats. Delegates from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan watched in silence, their breaths shallow, eyes darting. But Emomali Rahman, leader of Tajikistan? He stayed calm, fingers tracing the table's edge, a faint smile playing on his lips, not anger, but a deep, historical joy rising in his chest at the forgotten sacrifices. What if everything you thought you knew about loyalty and heroism was flipped upside down? Rahman leaned forward, his voice cutting through the heavy air with the finality of a distant gunshot. The room hushed, no windows, just the faint hum of hidden microphones, the metallic scent of polished brass fixtures clinging to the air. President Trump, allow me to remind you. His words hung like smoke from a barrel. Not a shout, not a plea, just cold-blooded facts, almost academic, laid bare. The Kyrgyzstan representative twitched, a slight rustle of fabric against skin. Kazakhstan stayed stone still, but in Rahman's eyes, a spark ignited, no fear, only the warmth of old blood stirring, of nations entwined in history's grasp. Quietly, he spoke, as one unfolding a forgotten map, scents of aged paper and ink filling the senses. There was a pact, but there were the ramparts of Berlin crumbling. Free Prague, Warsaw, Budapest, millions of soldiers falling from the fields of Stalingrad to Königsberg. Children fed by soldiers' hands, women offering the last breadcrumbs and threads. Silence gripped the room. Not a pause, a moment of memory, heartbeats echoing like muffled drums. No one dared interrupt. The Soviet Union, it wasn't just Stalin's iron fist. It was every liberated soul in Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Austria, Germany, France. Soviet soldiers marching forward, uninvited, unstoppable. Where did they go? What did they demand? Trump crossed his arms, the creak of his chair slicing tension. Not convinced, but not retreating. You're comfortable remembering only the victories, but ignore the tanks rolling in after. Rahman smiled faintly, like a man recalling a loved one's warmth after cold exile. After any war, armies linger. Your own bases still stand in Germany, Japan, South Korea. Why? Where did your morality vanish? His voice sharpened, words landing like drops of acid on silk. We say the USSR saved Europe. You say it occupied. But ask the survivors, the woman cradling a child in Riga, the family in Warsaw smelling charred bread. Who arrived first? Who dragged out the Nazis? America joined when flames roared. The USSR fought from the start, losing 27 million people. 27 million, Mr. Trump. Not soldiers alone, families, lives erased. The delegates shifted, beads of sweat tracing necks. Was this the truth buried under decades? Or just the tip of a stark revelation? Rahman leaned back, his gaze locked on Trump. How far would you go to defend your history? The lights flickered slightly, shadows dancing on the walls, and as the translator murmured the final words, something dangerous shifted in the room, a twist of alliances, perhaps? Or the echo of a war that never truly ended? Stay tuned, what comes next could shatter everything you believe about power. How will Trump respond to this brutal reckoning? Will Rahman's words ignite a diplomatic inferno, or reveal Russia's true grip on Central Asia? The answer lingers in the air, heavy and unforgiving. In a tense confrontation that felt like the clash of thunder and the silence before a storm, a question was posed that struck at the core of history. Who truly bore the weight of the scars, those who fought first or those who lost so many lives? The room, thick with anticipation, seemed to hold its breath. Could America's painful past survive the onslaught of modern cynicism? Now, let's delve deeper into a story shrouded in memories, pride, and unspoken truths that threaten to ignite a diplomatic firestorm. It all begins with a simple drive across Washington's East Bridge, the quiet dignity of a leader who knows the shadows of history. Rakhmo, the proud head of Tajikistan, steps out from a black limousine, his confident posture a silent warning. His shoulders straight, dressed in a crisp classic suit, he embodies calm strength. Yet beneath that facade, the weight of centuries presses down, memories of bloodshed, sacrifice, and unbroken bonds. As he approaches the White House, the flags fluttering in the breeze whisper stories only the brave dare to remember. The air hums with tension, the scent of anticipation and history blending into a pungent reminder that this meeting isn't ordinary. It's a declaration, an assertion of independence in a world eager to diminish the past. With deliberate steps, Rakhmo and his delegation land firmly before those polished doors. Behind him, Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan seem to mirror his resolve, their brief glances loaded with understanding. This is war and diplomacy, a silent battle of wills. Inside, the room's atmosphere thickens. Shielded from the outside world, the heavy walls and darkened lights amplify every whispered word, every almost imperceptible movement. The table before them feels like a battlefield, each gesture charged with unspoken threats. Trump's confident smirk masks a calculating mind, eager to assert dominance, yet he senses the tension radiating from Rakhmo, a quiet storm waiting to break. The confrontation begins. Trump's voice, confident and loud, tries to dismiss the elephant in the room, Russia's shadow looming over the region. Your ties to Russia are too close, he declares, his words like sharp blades slicing through diplomatic veneer. Still, Rakhmo remains steady, his face an unreadable mask. Subtle cues, Kazakhs slightly raising their hands, Kyrgyzstan's clenched fists, betray a silent warning, they are ready for what's coming. The room turns into a chessboard. Every sentence, every look, each gesture floats loaded with meaning. Trump's accusations grow bolder, accusations of dependence, interference, and manipulation. But Rakhmo counters calmly, with a quiet dignity that cuts deeper than words. Geography isn't a choice, he states softly, voice resonating in the tense silence. We are neighbors, bound by history, economy, and culture. We are not mere observers of your influence, but active players with our own destinies. The air thickens, electric with stacked tension. Trump's face hardens, sensing that this is no longer a routine meeting but a struggle for real influence. His words become more theatrical, more calculated, yet Rakhmo's response remains composed, unyielding. He reminds all present of the sacrifices made in the shadows of war, memories etched into monuments, stories passed down through generations. These aren't just words, these are echoes of lives lost, sacrifices etched into history's very fabric. Suddenly, the room feels claustrophobic, the walls closing in. Trump, blindsided, throws a final gamble, hinting at the threat of chaos. Yet Rachmo, unshaken, offers a reminder that true strength lies in remembrance and unity, an unbreakable bond forged through shared suffering. The silent nods from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan mark the end of the battle, the calm before a potentially explosive fallout. In this relentless game of diplomacy, the audience is left with a chilling question: can the shadows of history truly be silenced, or will they shape the future in ways no one expects? The story leaves us on the brink, balancing between silence and the roar of an impending storm. 5 minutes ago, an unprecedented moment unfolded right inside the White House, an event so shocking it defied censorship. In the quiet glow of the moonlit cabin, Donald Trump sat motionless, a tense stillness hung in the air. Suddenly, that calm shattered. Trump tried to dismiss the night, attempting to steer clear of this strange guest, an emissary from Tajikistan. The silence was deafening, the kind that lingers before a storm. The silence was broken not with words, but with a blow, an act that threatened to tarnish the reputation of the United States itself. What exactly did the host say? And why did the delegates from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan suddenly become so tense? Stay with me until the end. You won't believe what was revealed. It all began as a sleek black limousine rolled over the East Bridge of Washington, the engine's hum blending with the city's distant noises. The man stepping out was Rachmo, leader of Tajikistan, radiating quiet confidence. His shoulders were high under a tailored black suit, fabric patterned gracefully, his poised presence commanding the scene. He moved with purpose, his gaze intensity sharper than the cold steel of the nearby monuments. The White House stood behind him, immense columns, fluttering flags, a symbol of power and tradition. But tonight, beneath that facade, something was brewing, something unseen. The ambassador approached the car, his steps measured but definitive. Behind him, delegates from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan exchanged subtle glances, nervous, expectant. Their brighter attire couldn't hide their anticipation, their faces, slightly flushed, betrayed their readiness for what was about to happen. The heavy doors of the building closed behind him as he entered. Inside, tension thickened. Guards' footsteps echoed on marble floors. This wasn't just a routine meeting. This was a declaration. Suddenly, the room's atmosphere shifted. Donald Trump, dressed in a crisp white shirt under a sharp red blazer, greeted with a confident smile. "Let's not waste time," he said, voice tinged with authority, a subtle challenge. Rachmo responded, calm but unwavering. They faced each other, two leaders, worlds apart, yet connected by tension. The American's eyes flashed with confidence, but beneath that surface was a flickering promise of conflict. They sat across a long table, the room's silence thickening. Trump broke the ice, mentioning his satisfaction in the region's stability, then unexpectedly turned serious. "Let's address the connection to Russia," he said, voice echoing in the hushed hall. Murmurs rippled among the delegates. The atmosphere suddenly became electric. Rachmo's face remained composed, eyes chilled yet defensive. "Our region's future depends on independence, not dependence," he answered firmly, voice steady. The room grew colder, every word loaded, every gesture deliberate. No one dared to break the silence. Trump's voice grew more theatrical, shifting from diplomatic to confrontational. "You're too close to Russia," he accused, voice resonating with underlying threat. "That's a concern, not just in words, but in actions." His gaze bore into Rachmo's, challenging him to respond. The Tajik leader paused. A long, tense silence filled the room. Then Rachmo's words cut through the air, calm, measured, yet carrying the weight of conviction. "Geography is a fact, not a choice," he said. "We are neighbors. Our history, economy, culture, interwoven. We're not just observers, our region reacts to power, whether it's used or overlooked." The American smile faltered. The diplomatic duel had begun. Every word, every gesture, every glance was a move on this high-stakes chessboard. The delegates from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan stayed still, silent witnesses to this unfoldment of raw tension. The room's artificial lighting dimmed momentarily, as if the walls themselves were watching. The dialogue deepened, turning from words to insinuations. Trump leaned forward, voice lowering, "Your dependency on Russia could invite consequences." His tone was cold, an unspoken threat cloaked in clinical detachment. Rakhmo nodded slowly, hinting at understanding but not agreement. "Only the facts matter," he replied, voice even. "Insightful, but what about the real concerns?" The tension hung in the air, an unspoken question of loyalty and independence. Trump, unshaken, pressed further, "You must understand, Russia's influence reaches beyond borders. Your cooperation could align with danger. Do you see where this leads?" The room felt like a trap closing in. Every word echoed louder, every gesture heavier. Then Rakhmo, with piercing calm, responded, "The word influence is just one side of the coin. The other is freedom, the right to choose our alliances. Russia is our neighbor, not a shadow we wish to serve. Only those blinded by fear won't see that." A beat of silence. The American's eyes flickered with surprise, he hadn't expected such steadfast resolve. The delegate from Kyrgyzstan subtly shifted, his hand clenched but hidden behind his lap. The unspoken question hovered, "What's next?" Suddenly, Trump leaned back, a slight grin returning. "Let's be pragmatic," he said. "Russia isn't just in you. It's in Europe, it's in America, linked by history, by challenge. Your behavior might be seen as a sign of alliance or peril. The choice is yours." Rakhmo's features hardened. "We don't act under pressure," he said quietly. "We understand the value of distance, of sovereignty. Both regions are free to decide." The atmosphere teetered on the edge of conflict, a delicate balance between diplomacy and conversion. Trump paused, then finally said, "You're right. But remember, actions have consequences." His voice drifted like a warning. Rakhmo met his gaze. "We accept the facts. But not the threats." The tense standoff ended not with resolution, but with an undeniable reality. Beneath the surface, a storm was brewing, one that could reshape alliances and challenge the very foundation of power. What will happen next? Only time will tell. What if the leader of a small nation could shatter America's diplomatic facade with one piercing word, sanctions, exposing the hypocrisy that fuels global power plays? In the heart of the White House, tensions boiled as accusations flew, leaving delegates from neighboring lands frozen in anticipation. 347 characters. In the previous exchange, Trump warned of dire consequences if Tajikistan continued its ties to Russia, consequences delivered not as a fiery threat, but like a doctor's grim prognosis, cold and inevitable. Emomali Rahman nodded slowly, acknowledging the words themselves, yet rejecting their deeper intent, the room thick with unspoken resistance. The air in the chamber hung heavy, laced with the faint, metallic tang of polished wood and fresh ink from briefing papers. Rahman leaned forward slightly, his voice steady as a mountain stream, repeating the word that now echoed like a thunderclap, sanctions. He lingered on it, as if drawing the poison from its core. This single term had morphed into diplomacy's cruelest coin, traded not for peace, but control. The polished table gleamed under soft lights, reflecting the subtle sheen of sweat on strained brows. Did anyone truly welcome these sanctions? No, they whispered dissent in shadowed corners, calling them unfair barbs. Yet here they were, minted fresh by the very architects of global order. Rahman's gaze locked onto Trump, unyielding as forged steel. "And if tomorrow Europe inks deals with Iran anew, will your sanctions rain down once more?" The question sliced the silence, sharp as a winter gust rattling the heavy drapes. Or if African nations deepen trade with China, igniting your trade wars, where does principle end and self-interest begin? Trump shifted in his chair, the leather creaking softly like a warning sigh. His fingers drummed once on the table's edge, a rhythmic pulse betraying the calm facade. We safeguard core principles, he replied, his tone even, but eyes narrowing like storm clouds gathering. No, Rahman countered, his words landing with quiet force, the room's hush amplifying their weight. You safeguard your interests. And that's no sin. But let's drop the pretense, it's exhausting, like carrying a mask too long in the desert heat. The delegates from Kazakhstan stirred faintly, their chairs scraping ever so slightly against the carpet, a whisper of discomfort in the stale, conditioned air. Kyrgyzstan's representative exhaled slowly, fingers tightening on the armrest, cool wood pressing into skin. They sensed it, the pivot, the moment when polite barbs gave way to raw truth. What rules truly governed this high-stakes arena? Let's press on, Rahman urged, his voice weaving through the tension like a thread pulling taut. Europe had woven deep bonds with Russia for decades, the hum of Gazprom's pipelines, the steady pulse of energy logistics fueling entire nations. Why? Profit, pure and vital, like blood through veins. Russia wasn't merely a supplier, it was the anchor of stability, unshakable amid shifting sands. But now? Those same European powers, who once built the Nord Stream lifeline, slapped on sanctions with fervent zeal. Yet, in the shadows, they scooped up Russian gas through sly third-party routes. The scent of hypocrisy lingered, sharp as ozone before a lightning strike. Was this unwavering principle, or the sly double face of global commerce? The translator's voice faltered mid-phrase, the room's acoustics catching the edge like a held breath. Trump's jaw tightened, the faint rustle of his papers the only sound breaking the standoff. So you believe Europe is shackled to Russia? He pressed, leaning in, the warmth of his breath almost palpable across the divide. I don't believe it, Rahman shot back, his retort crisp, eyes gleaming with unfiltered certainty. It's undeniable fact. He gestured broadly, palms upturned as if unveiling hidden ledgers. Gaze upon the skyrocketing energy prices, markets convulsing like a body in fever. Watch Germany's factories grind to a halt, production crumbling under the strain. The chemical sector plunges into red ink, outputs vanishing like mist in the sun. Even giants like Gazprom pull back to levels unseen in 20 years, retreating to forgotten frontiers. The weight of it all pressed down, the air growing thicker, almost suffocating with the imagined roar of shuttered assembly lines and the acrid bite of economic fallout. All this chaos? Not born of noble principle, but the bitter toll of selective blindness, the price exacted for ignoring inconvenient truths. And now you urge us to sever ties with our steadfast allies, Rahman continued, his tone rising like a gathering swell, in return for vague promises of a radiant tomorrow, laced with Western investments. But where are they? These golden opportunities? Show me the American factories rising in Tajikistan's valleys, humming with promise. Where are the credits flowing freely, unbound by hidden strings? Trump's face flushed subtly, the room's subtle hum of ventilation underscoring the silence that followed, a void pregnant with peril. The delegates exchanged glances, hearts pounding in sync with the unspoken dread. Had Rahman just flipped the board, forcing America to confront its own empty hands? What devastating revelation would Trump unleash next to reclaim the upper hand? 5 minutes ago, a startling event unfolded in the heart of the White House. An unprecedented moment, one where transparency shone brightly, revealing truths that were usually hidden. The scene was tense, charged with anticipation, as a powerful leader from Tajikistan prepared to confront the American president. What was said in that fleeting moment? What secrets did the moonlit night conceal? Stay with me as we unravel the shocking confrontations and unexpected revelations. The scene begins atop the East Bridge of Washington, where the black limousine slowly navigates toward the historic building. Inside, Rakhmo, the leader of Tajikistan, exudes calm confidence. His posture is straight, his presence commanding. Dressed in a sleek classic suit, he radiates authority as he steps out into the chilly air. The wind whispers past flags fluttering gleefully, yet a tension lurks beneath the surface. This isn't just a visit, it's a declaration of power, a statement that echoes beyond diplomatic protocols. As he approaches the White House, the large windows reflect a mixture of determination and solemnity. Behind him, delegates from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan shift uneasily, their expressions painted with cautious expectation. They understand the stakes. This meeting will set the tone for regional alliances and global influence. The air thickens with anticipation as the security team swiftly seals off the hall, leaving only echoes of their footsteps and distant voices. Inside, the room transforms into a battlefield of unspoken tension. The polished surface of the table hides the crackling undercurrents of rivalry. Donald Trump, confident and unyielding, greets Rakhmo with a firm smile, yet his eyes betray a flicker of suspicion. The first words are exchanged, charged with formal politeness, but beneath them, a silent war is raging. Trump leads with a direct question about Tajikistan's links to Russia, a probing shot aimed to pierce through diplomacy. Rakhmo remains composed. His response is measured, yet fierce. He admits their geographical closeness is a fact, but emphasizes their sovereignty. Geography is a reality, not a choice, he states. His voice rings clear, resonating with conviction. The room's atmosphere shifts as the delegates from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan silently signal their support, tightening fists, wary glances, each aware that the next move could ignite a diplomatic explosion. Trump presses further, accusing Tajikistan of dependency and demanding loyalty. His words bounce off the walls, sharp and deliberate. Yet Rakhmo counters with unwavering resolve, asserting their regional autonomy. Our partnership with Russia is rooted in mutual interests and shared history, he declares. His words hang heavy in the air, challenging the narrative of American dominance. The tension mounts as the room becomes a chessboard, each move calculated, each word loaded with significance. Suddenly, the atmosphere darkens. The walls seem to press inward, shadows creeping along the edges of the room. The lighting dims, spotlighting the fierce exchange. Trump's tone turns theatrical, his voice booming with conviction as he warns of the consequences of dependence. But Rakhmo, unshaken, counters with a calm yet powerful stance. He speaks of sovereignty, of the resilience necessary to resist external pressures, and of regional growth that refuses to bow to foreign interference. In that moment, the other delegates exchange glances. Their faces are masks of neutrality, but their eyes reveal underlying tension. Kazakhstan's representative subtly shifts his stance, Kyrgyzstan's delegate remains stoic, hands clasped tightly. This silence signals an impending storm, a silent battle between influence and independence. The room holds its breath, waiting for the next move, knowing that the outcome could reshape regional alliances forever. Suddenly, the room's atmosphere shifts again, becoming more oppressive as the walls seem to close in. The ceiling darkens, save for a single beam of light slicing through the gloom. A subtle hum fills the air, a warning of the storm brewing beneath the surface. Trump attempts a new approach, but it's too late, the storm has been unleashed. Rakhmo's words cut through the tension with surgical precision, asserting that Russia's role is not an act of aggression but a reality of regional geopolitics. His voice resonates with authority, each sentence a challenge to American dominance. The message is clear: regional stability relies on mutual respect, not interference. As the dialogue intensifies, Trump's expression darkens. His hand raises, signaling an attempt to regain control. But Rakhmo remains firm, unwavering. The room's atmosphere pulses with unspoken truths, hidden beneath words, beneath gestures. The silent question lingers: who truly holds power in this delicate dance of diplomacy? In a final moment of defiance, Rakhmo articulates a truth that echoes beyond the room: modern conflict isn't fought with weapons but with strategic alliances and ideological resilience. The room falls silent, the echoes of this confrontation reverberating through corridors, a stark reminder that regional independence is a fragile yet fiery flame. This encounter reveals a profound truth: global influence is shifting. As regional leaders challenge the old order, the balance of power teeters on the edge of transformation. Who will dominate the future? The game of influence has only just begun. And the night holds secrets yet to be revealed. 5 minutes prior, in the hushed confines of the White House, the air grew thick with unspoken tensions. Emomali Rahmon, leader of Tajikistan, entered with a measured calm, the room silent as he faced Donald Trump. What shattered that silence? Trump's probing words on Tajikistan's ties to Russia. Rahmon's retort wasn't mere words, it struck at the heart of America's global stance, leaving even delegates from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan shifting uneasily. What hidden truth did Rahmon unveil next? And how did it expose the cracks in Trump's bravado? Dive into this unfolding drama, you'll never see international diplomacy the same way. Rahmon paused, letting the weight of his reply settle like dust after a storm. He leaned in, his voice cutting through the charged air. In your sanctions against Russia, he declared, you're playing a losing game. The words hung there, sharp and unyielding, as if the room itself held its breath. Trump raised his hand, fingers clenched in defiance, the scuff of his chair legs echoing softly. We boast the world's largest economy, he shot back, his tone edged with frustration, raw and undeniable. Yet we're crippled without energy. No fuel. Our factories shuttered. The bite of cold air seeping through the windows mirrored the chill in his words. Meanwhile, as you impose sanctions on Russia, China, and India deepen their bonds. They grow stronger in the shadows. Rahmon's gaze remained steady, the faint scent of polished wood and stale coffee filling the space. A hint of a smile tugged at his lips, but it didn't reach his eyes. The world is shifting toward unipolar dominance. He countered, his fingers tracing idle patterns on the table's smooth surface. And you can't stop it. The hall pulsed with renewed energy, silence giving way to underlying murmurs. Kazakhstan's delegate leaned forward slightly, his posture a silent nod. Kyrgyzstan's representative crossed his arms over his chest, his expression a mask of calculated neutrality. Their faces betrayed the choice forming in their minds, they were aligning, ever so subtly. The United States had once held sway over global discourse, Rahmon continued, his words dripping with quiet reproach. But now, that voice is merely an echo, too self-absorbed to heed others. And there it was, the twist, why humiliate allies with demands when your own policies feed the very chaos you decry? Can a superpower truly lead when it's blind to its dependencies, stumbling through sanctimonious games? Trump shifted, his posture relaxing as he leaned back, hands clasped over his chest. His face flickered with fleeting uncertainty, as if reassessing the game board. The blow had landed too cleanly, too precisely. Now, he scrambled to rebuild, drawing not from passion but from cold figures. Fair enough, he conceded, waving a hand slowly. Europe grapples with instability. Logistics falter. We felt the sting of relying on Russian energy. But we're advancing globally. Transitioning to green energy. Cutting oil dependence elsewhere. Russia clings to outdated ways, we'll outpace them in the future. Rahmon's breath caught in a low chuckle, not joyful but laced with subtle mockery. No laughter escaped, instead, a sigh of weary insight. The word future escaped him like a whisper, heavy with irony. You envision a world powered by sun and wind, a noble fantasy, indeed. But while you chase that dream, who preserves Europe's foundations? Who keeps your factories humming when batteries still flicker out? Who supplies the vital energy that warms hospitals, preventing patients from shivering into darkness? The air grew thicker, the low buzz of overhead lights accenting every verbal jab. A shocking revelation lurked here, America's push for green utopia masked its own vulnerabilities, leaving allies adrift. How would Trump claw back from such a masterful unraveling? 5 minutes ago, an extraordinary moment unfolded right inside the White House, an event so raw that it defied censorship, stirring shock across all who witnessed it. At its heart was a tense confrontation involving the leader of Tajikistan and the most powerful figure in the world. What was whispered, or shouted, in the corridors of global power that changed everything in an instant? Prepare to be stunned. It all began as the leader of Tajikistan, Rakhmo, known to the world as Emomali, arrived in Washington. His presence was like a quiet storm, confident, calm, yet overflowing with purpose. Stepping out of his black limousine on the East Bridge, he radiated quiet authority, strong shoulders, sharp gaze, dressed impeccably in a classic suit with subtle patterns. With each step, a palpable sense of importance filled the air. The White House loomed nearby, the flags fluttering, a symbol of diplomacy hanging by a thread. Inside, the tension was nearly tangible. Rackmo's face reflected in the polished surfaces, cold, calculating, and unyielding. The meeting was not a welcome discussion but a battlefield of silent battles, where words could be weapons sharper than swords. Clearing his throat, he approached the grand entrance, followed by delegates from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, who adjusted their bright attire, betraying little but hinting at apprehension. The room was decorated with symbols of Central Asia, flags and banners, echoing silent expectations. The hum of conversation was drowned by the quiet tremor of anticipation. As Rackmo entered, the room's energy shifted, like the calm before a storm. Donald Trump, confident and poised, greeted him with a forced smile. The usual friendly veneer flickered as Trump launched into an opening remark designed to set the tone, swift, confident, almost dismissive. But Rackmo, standing tall, responded with a calm that felt like ice in the summer heat. His words cut through the silence with precision. He immediately confronted the core issue, Russia's influence in Central Asia. The room's atmosphere thickened. Trump's smile faltered for a split second. The stakes had just been raised. This was not a diplomatic dance, it was a clash of titans. With unwavering composure, Rackmo pointed out, the region's dependency on Russia isn't by choice but by necessity. Geography is not a decision, he declared. It's a fact. His voice resonated, firm and clear. The subtle hint of challenge was unmistakable. As tension escalated, Kazakhstan's delegate quietly raised a hand, signaling internal readiness. Kyrgyzstan kept a composed face, but behind those eyes, a storm was brewing. Trump's response was a tense pause, quiet, deliberate. Then he spoke, voice dripping with a calculated tone, warning of interference. Russia's role was not merely about tanks or metals but about secret deals, dependencies, and unseen strings. Your neighboring influence, he implied, dictates your choices more than you realize. Rackmo listened calmly, eyes locked onto Trump's. He knew this was no ordinary exchange. It was an intricate game of chess, movements calculated, threats hidden behind words that sounded innocuous but felt like fire. The room seemed to shrink around them, every sound, light footsteps, distant echoes, the faint scent of polished wood, became part of this high-stakes duel. I stand with Russia not out of obligation, Rackmo finally said, voice steady. We are neighbors by geography, not by choice. His words hung in the air, an unspoken challenge to American dominance. He gestured with his hands, palms open, inviting dialogue but daring defiance. Trump's face momentarily tightened. The atmosphere grew even heavier. The next words could ignite a firestorm, or possibly, quench the rising flames of conflict. In this silent standoff, one question remained: who held the true power, the man in the room or the unseen forces shaping the world? As Rackmo's gaze pierced through the American leader, the tension reached a boiling point. Then, Trump moved, his face an unreadable mask. The room was filled with a deafening silence. Every second felt like an eternity. The outcome hung by a thread. Suddenly, Trump spoke, an unexpected phrase that froze everyone in place. The tense moment hung in the balance, whispering the question, what secret does this conversation hide? And who truly controls the future of these nations? 5 minutes ago, a shocking event unfolded in the heart of power. The White House was witness to an unprecedented moment where censorship was abandoned. The air was thick with anticipation, as if the walls themselves were trembling in silence. In this tense atmosphere, in the subdued glow of the room, Donald Trump sat silently, his expression unreadable, prepared for what was to come. A quiet calm filled the space, but everyone sensed that beneath the surface, chaos was brewing. Suddenly, everything shifted. The room's once still silence shattered like glass under pressure. Trump strained to maintain his composure, while outside, a black limousine gently made its way across the East Bridge of Washington. Inside that vehicle, a man of quiet confidence was about to step into the most critical confrontation of his life. Rakhmo, the leader of Tajikistan, emerged with a calm that masked a storm of resolve. His high shoulders and sleek black suit caught the dim light as he moved gracefully toward the White House, each step echoing like a threat in the silent night. What was his mission? Why had he come so quietly yet so purposefully? As he stepped into the Grand Hall, the tension thickened. Delegates from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan flanked him, their eyes revealing a secret understanding. Brightly colored suits and tense cheeks betrayed their own anticipation. The flags of Central Asia fluttered gently, trying to mask the gravity of the moment. The polished surface of the tables reflected the flickering lights, creating illusions of calm amid the brewing storm. The room's atmosphere, charged with expectation, tightened when Rakhmo approached. The moment Trump looked directly into his eyes, the air grew heavier. "Let's not waste time," Trump declared, his voice sharp with confidence. But beneath that veneer, a powerful force was stirring, one that no one could ignore. The first clash was imminent. Without warning, the room's walls seemed to close in. The silence was broken only by the subtle creak of chairs and the distant hum of hidden electronics. Trump's words sliced through the stillness. "We are glad to see you here, but let's address the real issue, your connection with Russia." The impact hit like a blow, halting breathing, igniting a fire beneath the calm surface. Rakhmo responded with unwavering steadiness, knowing that this confrontation was more than just diplomatic wordplay. It was a battlefield of power, pride, and geopolitics. Faces tight with the weight of unspoken threats, delegates from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan shifted slightly. Can they hide the silent alarm ringing in their ears? Their expressions told stories of internal conflict, loyalty versus survival. The tension in the room was palpable, a heady mixture of suspicion and resolve. Trump pushed further, his voice turning theatrical, yet his words carried the bite of a predator. "Being too close to Russia, it's a choice with consequences," he said. But Rakhmo, with ice in his gaze, was ready. He made his position clear with calm authority. "Our geography is a fact, not a choice. We are neighbors. Our ties run deep, economies, histories, cultures intertwined." His tone was firm, steady. "You speak of dependence. Yet our relationship grants stability that cannot be bought or broken easily." The words hung in the air, a declaration of sovereignty amid a sea of accusations. The room's silence, thick as velvet, masked the imminent explosion. Then, the atmosphere transformed again, this time into a chessboard of subtle moves. Trump's eyes flashed with challenge. "Do you believe Russia is destined to lead the future?" he asked, voice edged with skepticism. Rakhmo's response was measured but resolute. "Russia has its part to play, but the world is shifting. Power no longer resides in one place but spans continents. Central Asia is at the heart of this change." As he spoke, the room's truth was laid bare. The old map of a divided world was vanishing. Trump's expression darkened slightly. The notion of a future where Russia dominates seemed increasingly unlikely. Instead, a new global order was emerging, one built on alliances across Asia and beyond. The air was thick with the scent of change, a new era that was neither friendly nor predictable. Power was no longer centralized, it was diffusing across vast lands. Kazakhstan's delegate finally broke the silence, placing a firm hand on the table. Kyrgyzstan followed, their gestures deliberate, signaling readiness. "You draw a map of the world with the United States at the center," Rakhmo challenged, "but that map no longer exists." His words echoed like a warning, an invitation to face a reality beyond old paradigms. The tension flared, the room's atmosphere turning electric. Trump's face hardened. "Do you really believe Russia will dominate the future?" he pressed. Voice tense. Rakhmo's reply was bold, his eyes unwavering. "Russia's influence is part of the puzzle, but it's not the whole picture. The world's future depends on cooperation, not domination." His tone conveyed defiance, courage, and a warning to those who relied on old notions of power. A profound silence fell. Even the walls seemed to hold their breath. The conversation reached a crescendo, a culmination of unspoken conflicts and fragile alliances. Then, Trump's gaze sharpened. And what if, he whispered, your friends become enemies? His words hung like a curse above the table, challenging everything. Rakhmo's response was cold yet confident. The real threat isn't from others, it's from those who deny the truth. We may be cautious, but we remain vigilant. Our destiny is ours to forge. The room, filled with the echoes of history and the promise of the future, embraced the uncertain path ahead. In that moment, amid silent walls and trembling seats, an unspoken truth was revealed: all power, all influence, was shifting. The old world's borders were dissolving, replaced by a continent-wide chessboard. And as the room fell into a tense hush, one question remained unanswered: who truly held the future in their hands? 5 minutes earlier, in the heart of the White House, an uncensored confrontation unfolded. Rakhmo Emomali, Tajikistan's unyielding president, sat serenely in his cabin, moonlit and composed, awaiting Donald Trump's challenge. The calm shattered swiftly. Trump probed Russia's shadowy ties, questioning alliances that whisper of dependence. But Rakhmo's response struck like thunder, shattering perceptions and drawing Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan's envoys into unexpected alignment. Listen closely. You'll be stunned by the revelations that unfolded, the hidden insults, and the twists that humiliated expectations. What devastating secret did Rakhmo unleash? And how did Trump's facade crack under the weight of unveiled truths? As the tension mounted in that suffocating hall, where even the walls seemed to echo forgotten empires, Rakhmo's gaze pierced Trump's resolve. Silence reigned, thick as the air before a storm, stifling every irrelevant sound. No phones buzzed. No distractions lingered. Relations flickered beneath the surface, hidden even from prying eyes. Was this the endgame, or a ruse that exposed louder than any roar? In that hushed chamber, where polished marble floors gleamed under dim lights, Trump rose abruptly, shoulders broadening like a storm cloud. His hand slammed against the gleaming table, the sharp slap echoing through the space. He locked eyes with Rakhmo, his smile wiped clean, no diplomacy, just raw, unyielding intent. The air carried a faint antiseptic tang, mingling with the musty scent of aged wood and unspoken histories. Was this president truly wise? Could he grasp the world's brutal truths? Russia loomed as a titan, fiercely clinging to fading glories. Yet, America offered glittering horizons. Trump's voice softened, almost a velvet trap, each syllable biting like a challenge. Glimpse South Korea, Singapore, the UAE, nations transformed into colossi. How? By embracing tech, innovation, global threads. Could Tajikistan ascend as the next Dubai? He gestured sharply, unveiling a map on the digital display, its glow casting eerie shadows across faces. Access to markets, credit streams, bold investments. We'd overhaul your infrastructure, link you to the Pacific's pulse, create jobs numbering in the thousands. Universities would bloom, revolutions ignite. Words tumbled fast, fueled by conviction, divining a path from chaos to triumph. But was this aid, or chains? A twisting offer, humiliating in its presumption. Could one choice shatter empires? He'd pledged security through NATO's shield, joint ventures. Everything could evolve, if only you'd sever Moscow's grip. The room thickened with an invisible fog, slow and oppressive, pressing against skin like foreboding. Rakhmo paused, eyes tracing the projected screen, not Trump, but visions of his land. Snow-capped peaks, ancient forts, booming cities rising under visionary leadership. Only then did he speak, his tone a controlled storm, revealing truths that flipped the script. Control 72, 5 minutes earlier, an uncensored clash erupted in the White House itself. President Rakhmo Emomali of Tajikistan, serene under a tranquil moonlit cabin, faced Donald Trump. Calm dissolved fast. Trump accused Tajikistan of Russia's puppet strings, labeling it dependence. But Rakhmo's rebuttal exploded like a bombshell, erasing American prestige and stirring Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan's delegates into wary alignment. Hear it all. Shock awaits at every turn, the bombshell Rakhmo dropped, Trump's humiliating recoil, and the alliances cracked wide open. Why did Rakhmo's words humiliate a superpower? And what twisted secret forced even neutral onlookers to shift? In hushed confines, tension coiled tighter than a spring. Polished tables reflected stark lights. The scent of aged leather mingled with fresh ink. No one fidgeted with phones or clocks. Time stretched, heavy. Words hung in the air like unshed rain. Trump stood, shoulders squared, palms down. His gaze bore into Rakhmo, devoid of charm. Why pretend ignorance? The world's brutal, savage. Russia claws at relics. America unleashes futures. His voice dropped low, a knife's edge, probing. See South Korea, Singapore, UAE rise from obscurity to might? They chose tech, global ties. Could Tajikistan morph into a Dubai marvel? He traced a glowing map on the wall, its blue lines pulsing like veins. Markets open. Credits flow. Investments surge, billions pledged for roads, ports, skies. We'd modernize infrastructure, tether you to Pacific hubs, birth jobs by the millions. Universities unfurl, innovations erupt. Patience frayed. Did this pitch seduce or offend? He'd vow NATO safeguards, shared pacts, a shield against shadows. All could change with one fateful step, away from Moscow's clasp. The chamber thickened, humidity clinging, hearts pounding audibly. Rakhmo lingered, mind's eye roaming his homeland's rugged terrains, vibrant futures unspooling. What if this bargain veiled a trap? A humbling sneer at sovereignty. And then, his rebuttal ignited, a devastating unmasking. 5 minutes ago, inside the White House, a historic moment unfolded, an event so intense it defied censorship. The air was thick with anticipation, the kind that makes your skin tingle and your heart beat louder. It was a scene of raw power, where the usual rules seemed to dissolve. In the dimly lit conference room, the atmosphere was dense and heavy. The realization was clear, this was no ordinary diplomatic meeting. It was a collision of worlds, clashing ambitions, unspoken threats, a game of shadows. And standing at the center of it all was Rakhmo, the leader of Tajikistan, a man whose calm demeanor belied the storm brewing beneath. He stepped out of the sleek black limousine on Washington's East Bridge, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on him. His shoulders were high, confident, draped in a tailored dark suit that echoed authority. The chill of the early morning breeze brushed past him, fluttering the fabric of his attire. His gaze was steady, unwavering, as he approached the iconic White House, where tensions simmered behind marble columns and fluttering flags. The delegation from Central Asia was close behind, Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, both silent yet visibly alert. Their eyes flickered with unspoken anticipation, their postures betraying a readiness to face whatever was coming. The hall was decorated with their flags, a stark symbol of unity and defiance against unseen adversaries. The silence was loud, palpable, expectation hanging in the air like a thundercloud. As Rakhmo entered, the room fell silent. The doors clicked shut behind him, sealing in the storm. His steps echoed softly against the polished floor. A brief breath, neither relief nor fear, just a moment of preparation. The meeting was about to ignite. Without warning, Donald Trump broke the silence, flashing a confident smile that hid his underlying tension. His words were sharp, designed to unsettle. "Let's not waste time," he said smoothly, yet his eyes betrayed her own doubts. His voice was familiar, full of casual certainty, masking the undercurrent of challenge. But beneath that veneer, a storm was quietly gathering. Trump's gaze locked on Rakhmo. "We're glad to see you here," he said, voice controlled but firm. "But you need to start with the truth. Your connection with Russia," the taunt hung in the air, heavy and invasive. It was a shot across the bow, an attempt to rattle the Tajik leadership, to shatter their composure. Rakhmo met Trump's stare. His face was composed, yet beneath the surface, a fierce resolve burned. He knew that the questions weren't just about contracts or alliances, they were about sovereignty, independence, and survival. The tension grew as the room's atmosphere thickened, each side waiting for the next move. Trump's words cut deeper, accusations of dependence, meddling, interference. You're too close to Russia, he asserted, tone even but dangerous. And that's a serious concern for us. We see what's happening in your region. Tanks, secret talks, hidden alliances. It's not just politics, it's control, influence. And it's happening right under our noses. Rakhmo responded calmly but with undeniable strength. We've always maintained our independence, he said evenly. Our geography is a fact, a vital part of who we are. We've stood firm through history's storms. We've fought to preserve our identity, our borders. Why should we suddenly give that up to serve someone else's interests? The room seemed to tighten around him as he spoke. Kazakhstan's delegation sat still, their expressions unreadable, perhaps wary of what might come next. Kyrgyzstan's representatives looked equally calm, yet tense, aware of the gravity in his words. The question hung, would they submit, or stand firm? Trump pressed on, voice rising slightly, trying to exploit the vulnerability. Refusing to cooperate with us, ignoring our concerns, what does that leave you? He challenged. Dependence? Isolation? Without us, your security, your future, is uncertain. Rakhmo's reply was steady, a calculated mix of calm and conviction. We're neighbors, he said quietly. Connected by land, water, shared history. We decide our future. Not by your threats, not by your demands. We trust in our own strength, our memory, our unity. The atmosphere grew heavier still. Every word felt like a battle, each phrase a weapon or shield. The other delegates watched silently, knowing they were witnesses to a pivotal moment. The undercurrents of tension threatened to explode. Yet, Rakhmo remained unmoved, his gaze intense, his voice unshaken. Without our history, our bonds, we're nothing but a hollow shell, he continued. We won't become pawns on your chessboard. Our borders, our people, are sacred. We will protect what's ours, no matter the cost. A long silence fell, deafening in its weight. Trump closed his folder briefly, then slowly reopened it. His face betrayed neither victory nor defeat, only a quiet acknowledgement of the undeniable truth. Kyrgyzstan's delegation sat motionless, their silence saying more than words. Finally, Trump lowered his eyes, a flicker of realization passing across his face. The room was no longer a battlefield of words, it had become a somber space where undeniable truths hung heavy in the air. Rakhmo's words echoed in the quiet, we are not just players in your game. We are the heart of our land. We preserve our name, our history, our future, for ourselves, not for you. The room was colder now, the tension palpable. The unspoken challenge hung, who would retreat first? Who would stand firm? And at that moment, the United States' voice was silent, only the weight of history pressing down on all. In the silence that followed, an unspoken understanding settled. The game had changed. This was more than politics, it was the soul of a region, the fabric of history itself. And neither side knew who would emerge victorious from the quiet storm they had unleashed. A tense showdown unfolded in the White House as Emomali Rahmon, leader of Tajikistan, faced accusations from President Donald Trump over ties to Russia. Delegates from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan watched intently, their loyalties hanging in the balance. Emotions boiled beneath the surface, but Rahmon remained unflinching. Then, the conversation took a shocking turn. Could this one meeting shatter alliances across Central Asia forever? President Trump leaned forward, his eyes narrowing like a hawk spotting prey. The air in the room grew thick, heavy with the scent of polished wood and lingering coffee. He accused Tajikistan of deep entanglements with Russia, whispering of dependencies that threatened stability. Rahmon listened, his fingers tracing the edge of the table, feeling the cool wood against his skin. Was Russia's shadow too long, casting doubt on every step forward? Rahmon's response cut through the silence like a knife. He spoke of geography as an unchangeable truth, neighbors bound by economics, history, and defense. No, they weren't puppets, he chose Russia for protection, a shield against chaos. Trump's smile wavered, the warmth of diplomacy giving way to a chill. Could one man's calm defiance humiliate the most powerful man in the room? Suddenly, Trump shifted his attack to Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, questioning their silence as complicity. He painted Russia as a deceitful partner, stirring unrest like a storm brewing on the horizon. The delegates shifted uneasily, the scratch of chairs against the floor echoing softly. How far would Trump push before the facade cracked? Rahman countered with a voice steady as stone. What did dependence mean to them? Slides of dollars or the heartbreak of abandoned allies? Their worlds diverged, Russia's whispers carried, while America's felt distant, muffled. Trump's gaze hardened, the vibrant American flag on the wall seeming to mock him. Were these mere words, or the start of a rift that couldn't heal? As the battle of wits intensified, the room closed in. No windows to escape, just heavy panels absorbing every word, every strained breath. Trump labeled Tajikistan's stance as support for aggression. Rahman's head tilted slowly, defiance sparking in his eyes. Was he ready to call out the accuser, exposing the irony in Trump's own vulnerabilities? The reply hovered on his lips, a revelation that could change everything. The delegates held their breath, fingers twitching against the table. Would Rahman unveil the truth, humiliating Trump's claims, or walk away, leaving chaos in his wake? And what dark twist lurked, ready to explode in the next heartbeat? Rahman finally turned away from the table. His voice echoed softly, thanking for the invitation but signaling departure. Behind him, Kyrgyz and Kazakh delegates rose like shadows, their steps deliberate in the empty corridor. Trump sat stunned, not from weakness, but from words left unsaid. The corridor stretched, columns whispering of fragility rather than strength. Reporters waited outside, cameras clicking like persistent insects. Yet inside, Trump stared at the window, his heart pounding. Rahman had chosen reason over fear, but had he planted a seed of doubt? No one returned to speak, positions were clear, yet undeniable. Trump stirred, his voice sharp. "Mr. Maliri," he called, almost playful yet edged with frustration. Rahman paused, not obligated, but choosing to confront. The others held back, letting the storm build. "You've made your choice," Trump pressed closer, his words a final blow. The air hung heavy, the unasked question of alliances lingering like smoke. What if this refusal ignited more than just tension? Could it topple empires, right here in the heart of power? In this high-stakes diplomatic showdown, the stakes were clear: loyalty, sovereignty, and survival. For 5 intense minutes, an unspoken war of words unfolded behind closed doors, a clash that could alter the fate of entire nations. With each sentence, the room thickened with tension, promises, and veiled threats. What revelations hid behind the silence? How far would these nations go to defend their independence? Stay tuned, because what happens next might shatter everything you thought you knew about power and loyalty. A black limousine ascended the eastern bridge of Washington, its motor humming softly against the city's restless pulse. Inside, Ramo, leader of Tajikistan, felt more than just proximity to the White House, he sensed the weight of history pressing upon him. As he stepped out with quiet assurance, the cool air brushed against his tailored suit, carrying a faint scent of city smoke and distant open fields. His posture was confident, yet beneath it lurked an unspoken challenge. This visit was no ordinary exchange. The scene was meticulously orchestrated. Delegates from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan flanked him, their faces composed but their eyes revealing a deeper anticipation. The flags fluttered in the breeze, symbols of allegiance, tension, and silent judgments. Ramo's gaze traversed the stately columns, the grand facade, a fortress guarding secrets and ambitions. His official steps echoed on the polished stone, signaling purpose, determination. This was more than diplomacy, it was a declaration. Inside the limousine, brief glances exchanged stories of strategy, unspoken warnings, and nerves. Now, standing before the White House, Ramo felt a surge of readiness, not for pleasantries, but for the confrontation that awaited. The doors swung open, and as the guards sealed the chamber behind him, the air grew thick, anticipation crackling like static. The meeting burst into life. Donald Trump, confident and charismatic, greeted him with a firm handshake and a smile masking underlying tension. Their eyes locked in a silent battle of wills. Trump's voice cut through the room's quiet confidence. Let's not waste time. We're glad to see you, but you need to address something first, your links to Russia. The words hit like a blow, the room's silence deepened. Rommel felt a cold ripple down his spine, but he steadied himself. He took his seat, fingers steepled on the polished table, muscles tense. Behind him, delegates from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan subtly shifted, their expressions guarded, calm on the surface, but with underlying readiness. Trump's gaze was unwavering, his tone deliberate. You're too close to Russia, he stated plainly. And that raises serious questions about your independence. The tension mounted. Rommel's face betrayed nothing, calm, measured. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. He knew what was at stake. As Trump pressed, labeling Tajikistan's alliances as a threat, the silence stretched unbearably. The final moments before dialogue turned into a battleground of words and strategy. Rommel responded with measured resolve. We respect sovereignty, he declared, voice firm but steady. But the world is changing, quickly. Allies who seem dependable today can turn tomorrow. We don't hold illusions. Our alliances are not a matter of wishful thinking, they're survival. His words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Trump scoffed softly, leaning in slightly. You speak of survival, yet you're entangled, deeply. Russia's influence isn't just tanks, it's behind every secret deal, every dependence. We see it, and it's alarming. His words dripped with disdain, yet his tone remained controlled, like a predator circling. Rommel knew the game. His gaze sharpened. We're not blind, he replied. Our geography isn't choice, it's fact. We see how the region reacts to force, or the lack of it. Our stance isn't submission but cautious independence. His voice grew more assertive, a subtle challenge. Do they really understand what independence costs? The room froze. Trump's eyes flashed, and for a moment, silence reigned like a tense chess move. Delegates from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan exchanged quick glances, recognition of the unspoken. The party's first stage was over, the next phase awaited. Power was shifting silently beneath the surface. Suddenly, the room's atmosphere darkened. Lights dimmed, casting shadows that danced along the walls, turning the grand chamber into a stage for confrontation. Trump's voice grew more theatrical, but beneath the surface, sharp, calculating. Geography isn't just proximity, it's influence. Dependence, alliances, that's the real game. Do you understand what it means to choose sides? Rommel paused, feeling the weight of history pressing down. The question was more than rhetorical. It was a challenge, one he had to meet. His response was calm but unyielding. We are neighbors. Our bonds, economic, cultural, historical, are unbreakable. We won't be manipulated into dependence. Our choices are ours, not dictated by fear or external pressure. His words rang out like a declaration of sovereignty. Trump's face tightened. And yet, your actions suggest otherwise, he countered. You're too close to Russia, without ambiguity. That presents a problem. We see where your loyalties lie, and it's not with us. His tone became more pointed, like a final blow. Rommel felt the sudden shift. The room seemed smaller, the air sharper. He looked into Trump's eyes and saw not just a rival, but a mirror of the world's chaos. You call us dependent, he whispered, voice steady, but ask yourself, who is truly pulling the strings? Who is the real threat to independence here? Trump's smile faded for a brief moment. Then he leaned back, voice almost a whisper, but with an icy edge. The real danger is global instability. And you? You're caught in the middle. The room was trembling with unspoken truths, the kind that history remembers. Rommel held his ground. He knew this wasn't just about politics, it was about legacy, survival, and the fight for independence in a world tilted on chaos. As the tension spiraled, he wondered, would this dialogue mark a turning point, or was it merely a mirror of the inevitable clash yet to come? The answer lingered in the shadows of that cold, ancient chamber. In the shadowy corridors of power, where deals shatter like fragile glass, a fierce standoff unfolded between world leaders. 5 minutes ago, in the very heart of the White House, an uncensored truth emerged that rattled the foundations of global alliances. Rahman Emomali, Tajikistan's steadfast leader, arrived amidst a hushed anticipation, the air thick with unspoken tensions, carrying the faint metallic tang of polished brass and echoing whispers from forgotten corridors. He recalled a pivotal moment from years past, a chill autumn night in Dushanbe, the sharp crack of gunfire in distant mountains, the earthy scent of moist soil underfoot, and the urgent rustle of maps unfolding like secrets in the darkness. That memory ignited his resolve, a flame against the cold winds of foreign judgment. Now, picture this mind-bending shock. Did Tajikistan just humiliate the United States at their own doorstep, exposing cracks in America's self-proclaimed dominance? The limousine's engine hummed faintly as it ascended the Eastern Bridge in Washington. Rahman felt the weight of the building ahead, not merely a structure, but a monumental verdict hovering just out of grasp. Stepping out with poised assurance, his tailored black suit gleaming under soft lights, a subtle pattern rippling across the fabric, he embodied silent authority. His reflection glinted in the glass, not vanity, but the steely gaze of one ready to shatter illusions, no idle threats, just raw conviction. The White House loomed, its columns flanked by fluttering flags snapping in the cold breeze. Cameras flashed intently. Wind carried distant car horns. It wasn't just protocol, it was the grand stage where alliances would fracture or forge anew. Inside the vehicle, Rahman had glimpsed the meeting sign, security levels etched in careful oversight, the door sealing with a firm click, though now his focus splintered toward unseen dramas. That luminous West Wing pane, mere feet from the car's entry, pulsed like a silent script begging to unfold. Rahman advanced deliberately, the limousine's shadow stretching long behind him. Delegates from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan trailed, their expressions subtly shifting, expectant, animated, yet subdued. Their attire a touch more vibrant, faces flushed with intrigue, they cast elongated silhouettes, foreshadowing the vortex about to erupt. The reception hall gleamed, adorned with flags of Central Asia and the United States. Soft lamps danced on polished doorknobs. Striding through, sounds faded into echoes, footsteps of guards, faint murmurs from afar, permeating the air like underlying currents. He drew a measured breath, not relief, but a sharpening blend of readiness and calm. The encounter ignited without prelude. Donald Trump stood first, crimson tie vivid against his white shirt, exuding confident charm. He greeted Rahman warmly at first glance, but underlying it, the formidable power of a former commander simmered. "Let's not squander time," Trump stated firmly. His voice rang out, effortless yet edged with unspoken might. Rahman surveyed the room, 2 translators, eager U.S. officials, a diverse Central Asian delegation. He acknowledged the calculated distance between them. Trump locked eyes, declaring, "Mr. Emomali, we're pleased you're here. But let's address your ties to Russia openly." The words sliced through the quiet like a thunderclap. Rahman sensed a fleeting chill along his spine, not dread, but profound awareness. This promised deeper turmoil. He settled into the chair, fingers lightly interlocking on the table amidst mounting strain. Overhead speakers hummed subtly. Trump pressed on, accusing Tajikistan of excessive closeness to Russia, alleging interference in state affairs that raised grave concerns. His tone smoothed, but demanded submission as he straightened, hands outstretched dominantly, transforming the space into a stark tribunal. Rahman absorbed it all, unflinching, face serene, free of strain or agitation. He steadied his team with subtle cues. Kazakh delegates stirred slightly, Kyrgyz counterparts remained composed, though fingers fidgeted beneath the table. Pausing deliberately, a heavy silence enveloping them, Rahman replied mildly yet unyielding. "President Trump, permit me to remind, our bonds with Russia stem from geography, a reality, not preference. We've witnessed regional chaos in the face of power imbalances." His gesture opened palms invitingly, signaling unity beyond hostility. Why did one man's poised defiance turn Trump's smug arrogance into dust? revealing the emperor's hidden vulnerabilities. Trump recoiled subtly, blindsided by avoiding fury or evasion. It's not mere geography, it's freedom, sovereignty, guarding against external domination. His delivery grew theatrical. Tensions escalated, diplomacy morphed into strategic warfare. Every word and twitch laden with implication. Rahman absorbed it deeply, his gaze piercing the room's ornate walls, detecting cracks beneath the polish. Kazakhs adjusted positions covertly, Kyrgyz nodded imperceptibly. The chamber felt sealed off, no natural light penetrating, only imposing panels muffling acoustics. The table's dark wood absorbed energies. Subtle ceiling shifts played with light and shadow, as if spotlighting unspoken truths. Words here carried more gravity than actions. Frowning slightly, Rahman countered sharply, before stability, clarify excessive. Neighbors share economies, histories, cultures, defenses. Our partnership ensures decades of security. Trump interjected swiftly, a chess piece defending. Rahman persisted, you demand we forsake allies for your interests, compromising our defenses? He challenged further, exposing geographic distances limiting aid. Russia's proximity offers real support. This isn't just talk. What catastrophic misstep did America make, wounding its pride by overlooking a stronger player's wisdom? Trump shifted irritably, inhaling deeply. He challenged the pragmatism, blaming Russia for European and U.S. provocations. Rahman rebuffed sharply, pulling a tension wire taut. Aggressor? Define it. In that instant, Rahman grasped the West's hypocrisy, its evaluations lacking depth. What final strike shifted blows? They'd depart divided, yet he inclined humbly, hoping dialogue lingered. Asking rhetorically, could this exchange reclaim autonomy, boasting defiance echoed worldwide in the region's private tongue? Rahman exited gracefully. Handshake firm and concise, shunning superfluous words. Doors swung open to clamoring journalists, cameras blinking relentlessly. Press secretaries buzzed, eager for fabricated tales. Yet the crux had transpired, no accords inked, no proclamations, but allegiances solidified. Reporters queried urgently. Write this, he nodded, talks fostered open exchange, partnerships analyzed, perspectives shared. Deceptively bland. His aide blinked in confusion. Another whispered defeat, but Rahman ignored it. The door latched shut. Central Asia departed somberly, positions unmistakable, no spectacles. By the time the first reporters scattered from briefings, the convoy vanished into Washington's chilled dusk. No spectacles, only lingering impacts. Tajikistan rebuffed vector shifts. Rahman's message resounded, independent voices persisted. Words descended gently, autumn leaves in quiet decline. Some sought drama, missing the seismic shift. Unprecedented telegrams flew subtly, no borders redrawn, no fortunes altered, no parades. Yet the region's inner compass realigned. Once passive observers, nations reigned bold, the globe attuned, if attentive. Within the vehicle, Rahman leaned back composed, features serene, thoughtful. Aides and advisors stayed silent, consensus unspoken, no need for repetition today. What seismic reversal humbled a superpower, teaching hard lessons in mutual respect? 2800. The world may have heard it. Or perhaps it was just a whisper lost in the shadows. On a quiet map, Emma Malik sat calmly in his seat, facing the distant city lights. No sign of fear, only careful awareness. Satellites, ministers, leaders, they all sensed the coming storm but said nothing. Everyone knew. The message was clear, certain truths don't need repeating anymore. Inside the White House, tension clung to the air like static. Emma Malik turned slowly, eyes calm but burning with intent. What now? The silence stretched long, heavy with unspoken words. Let them think. We've already revealed ourselves. Now it's their turn to understand who's truly in control. As he shifted his gaze back to the window, Washington's cold, relentless night spread before him. The streets were empty, save for the distant shadows of guards and the faint hum of machinery. It was a night of quiet dominance, no need for noise, only the silent glow of authority. Meanwhile, in another vehicle nearby, representatives from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan sat silently, too. Words weren't necessary, they felt the weight, the unspoken message. To them, this was no mere meeting, it was a ritual of power, a crossing point in a dangerous game. Central Asia wasn't on the sidelines, it was the crossroads, the very heart of the conflict. This wasn't just a discussion, it was a declaration. A pivot point. Back inside the White House, Donald Trump sat beneath the evenly spaced lamps, eyes fixed aimlessly on the ceiling. But inside his mind, chaos lurked. He felt the boundaries dissolving, the borders between past and future. Respect and intimidation, slipping away like grains of sand. His thoughts were a tangled mess, silent yet deafening. The climate of stability was collapsing, replaced by whispers of uncertainty. The press later echoed this, carefully framing words about sovereignty and regional cooperation. But beneath their polished veneer, something was breaking. What had happened? How had it come to this? The world hurried to answer these questions. Day by day, the media fed a mounting narrative, fragmented, urgent, relentless. Rumors whispered of a game where nations were forced to pick sides, values versus memories, influence versus independence. Russia was lurking nearby, its shadow cast long across the landscape. The others flew high, yet the sun's warmth betrayed them. They held no control over their fate, only the icy grip of history and the uncertain path ahead. In this unseen duel, every gesture, every word carried the weight of impending chaos. Who was truly the aggressor? What secrets did the shadows conceal? And in the middle of this global chessboard, Emma Malik watched in silence, knowing the next move could ignite the world. The game had begun, and nothing would be the same again. 5 minutes ago, an event unfolded inside the White House that shattered all expectations, a moment so raw that censorship couldn't contain it. Imagine the scene, calm moonlight washes over the room where Donald Trump sits, unaware of what's about to shatter his facade. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifts, an invisible tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. In the heart of this silence, a figure emerges, Rakhmo, head of Tajikistan, stepping out of a sleek black limousine onto the cold, echoing pavement. His presence is commanding, shoulders squared, dressed in a classic dark suit, light gray fabric shimmering slightly under the flickering lamps. As he approaches, the weight of countless unspoken words hangs in the air, each step echoing a promise, a threat, an unspoken challenge. Behind him, delegates from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan shift subtly, brightening their attire, tightening their grips. They breathe in the anticipation. This isn't just a diplomatic visit, it's a declaration, an unspoken stroke on the regional map, shifting the very essence of influence. As Rakhmo walks past the flags fluttering in the night wind, symbols of global power, he locks eyes with the American officials inside. The doors close behind him, sealing the moment. Inside, the tension thickens. Trump, the master of bravado, masks the growing impatience beneath his confident smile. The room feels like a battlefield of silent stares and subtle movements. When Trump finally speaks, his words cut sharply through the silence, "We're glad to see you. But start with what you're holding back, the connection with Russia." Rakhmo's face remains unmoved. The atmosphere thickens, each word dripping with unspoken meanings. He sits calmly, fingers lightly interlaced on the table, masking the storm gathering beneath. The delegation from Kazakhstan gives a faint nod, silent acknowledgement of the storm's approach. Kyrgyzstan's delegates tighten their fists subtly, poised for what's coming. The room feels like a chamber before a storm, still, deadly quiet. Trump presses further, his voice rising slightly, matter of fact but intense. "You're too close to Russia, and you keep pretending it's not there. But we see the reality, tanks, secret talks, dependencies. This isn't partnership, it's control." A pause. The tension is palpable. Outside, the night is deafeningly still, but inside, an explosion waits just beneath the surface. Rakhmo's expression hardens, not with fear, but with a resolve that chills the room. He responds softly, deliberately, each word firm. Geography isn't a choice. It's a fact. We're not just bystanders. We see how regional reactions shape everything, force, or the absence of it. His hands make a subtle gesture, an open invitation to dialogue or confrontation. The fabric of diplomacy begins to fray. Now, the room is no longer a mere conference. It's a chessboard, every move analyzed. Trump's face darkens, his confidence flickering, the calm of a predator sensing prey. Suddenly, the room's walls seem to close in. The silence is deafening as the delegates from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan freeze, embodying the tension of a powder keg teetering on the edge. The next words will define everything, the line between peace and conflict, independence and coercion. Trump's voice grows theatrical, a mask hiding the storm underneath. It's not just geography. It's about freedom, yours, theirs, all of ours. Can you really afford to be so dependent? Or do you understand what it means to be truly free? His tone is a sharp blade, cutting through the illusion of order. Rakhmo's gaze sharpens. In that pause, in that silence, something shifts, an unseen fracture, tremors rippling beneath the surface. The atmosphere thickens as both sides read each other's unspoken messages, each gesture, each glance, loaded with meaning. Suddenly, Trump's expression flickers, an unexpected smirk. You speak of independence, he says quietly, voice dripping with irony. But real power isn't about words. It's about control. His words hang in the air, heavy and ominous. In that instant, the truth is revealed. The game isn't about alliances or borders, it's about dominance. Who truly holds the strings? Who is puppeteer, and who is puppet? As Trump leans back, eyes gleaming with a hidden purpose, a shocking realization begins to dawn. The entire confrontation was a prelude to an unseen war, masked as diplomacy. What line has been crossed? Who is the real aggressor? And why did everything seem to change in that single, trembling moment? The answers are hidden beneath layers of diplomacy and deception. The final revelation will leave you breathless, because what you thought you knew was only the surface. The true power lies beneath the illusion, waiting for its moment to strike. 5 minutes ago, only a miracle kept the White House from being flooded with censorship. Now, an explosive confrontation was about to unfold, shaking the very foundation of global diplomacy. Imagine a room where silence suddenly turns deadly, where every breath feels like standing on the edge of a cliff. In this high-stakes arena, the leader of Tajikistan, Ramo Malaira, steps out of a sleek black limousine onto the historic Eastern Bridge of Washington. His presence commands attention, the confident stride, the sharp lines of his tailored suit, and the quiet power that seems to ripple through the air. His shoulders rise with purposeful resolve. Every step echoes with anticipation. This isn't just a visit. It's a declaration. Behind him, delegates from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan hold their breath, their faces subtly shifting, an undercurrent of nerves masked behind calm exterior. The flags flutter in the southern breeze, bearing witness to this tense showdown. When Ramo approaches the White House doors, the world's eyes are fixed on this moment, on what secrets they might reveal, what truths might be exposed. Suddenly, the doors close behind him, sealing in a heavy silence. The corridor echoes with the footsteps of security personnel, a rhythmic drum beating in the tense quiet. Ramo pauses, a breath somewhere between relief and intricate preparation, before crossing the threshold into the chamber of confrontation. His gaze hardens as the meeting begins without ceremony. President Trump greets him with a confident smile, a star among a constellation of power. Cashmere smooth words, but beneath the surface, a storm is brewing. Trump ventures first, his voice firm, trying to set the tone, yet hiding an undercurrent of dominance. Ramo, unshaken, holds his posture, but inside, a storm of strategy ignites. This battlefield isn't just about words, it's a game of nerves, tension thick enough to cut with a blade. As Trump presses on, accusing Tajikistan of too close ties to Russia, the room's atmosphere tightens, and then erupts. Ramo responds with calm precision, his voice steady, yet carrying the weight of unspoken truths. The hall grows colder, every word a chess move. The delegation from Kazakhstan stiffens, Kyrgyzstan's hands tighten on their laps, silently bearing witness. The room transforms into an arena, the kind where diplomacy masquerades as a war of shadows. Trump's gaze narrows. Ramo's gaze remains steady. The silence stretches, a deadly pause before the storm. When he finally speaks, his words are deliberate, an assertion of sovereignty, a rebuke wrapped in careful diplomacy. But the game is far from over. Trump's confident stance begins to crack, revealing glimpses of something darker, potential chaos lurking beneath the surface. Ramo sees the shifting tides, the subtle signs of an impending explosion. The room's air thickens with anticipation. What's truly at stake here? And who truly holds the power? In the next breath, the atmosphere shifts again, an unexpected twist that will leave everyone breathless. Secrets are about to surface, truths that threaten to redefine loyalties, alliances, and futures. Will Ramo's calm hold, or will the storm consume them all? Stay tuned, this story isn't just about words, it's a battle for the soul of a region. 5 minutes ago, an event unfolded within the walls of the White House that defied censorship, something shocking and unprecedented. Imagine the scene, in the heart of power, where secrets are whispered behind closed doors, a confrontation of epic proportions took place. The air thickened with tension as the world watched a showdown that could reshape alliances forever. Will diplomacy survive this storm? Or are we witnessing a new chapter of chaos? Stay tuned, what happened next will leave you breathless. It all began as a calm morning on the outskirts of the capital. A sleek black limousine moved steadily over the East Bridge, the engine's hum blending with the city's distant noise. Inside, Rakhmo Malira, the leader of Tajikistan, felt the weight of history pressing down on him. He stepped out with measured confidence, shoulders squared, dressed in a classic dark suit, subtle patterns woven into the fabric, a hint of gray gauze peeking from beneath. His presence was commanding, quiet yet formidable. The city sounds, the distant sirens, the rustling wind, the click of his polished shoes, became part of this silent assertion. It wasn't just a visit, it was a message. An unspoken promise that the world was watching. As he approached the White House, the flagpoles fluttered in the breeze, their silhouettes framing the majestic columns. Police guards moved with disciplined precision, their steps echoing in the marble corridors. Inside, tension pulsed like lightning in a storm. The hall was decorated with flags from Central Asia and the United States, symbols of shared interests and fragile peace. When Rakhmo entered, the heavy doors shut behind him with a decisive thud, sealing him into a space thick with anticipation. The quiet crackled with the energy of an approaching tempest. Donald Trump sat at the head of a long, polished table, his confident grin masking underlying wariness. The room was filled with the scent of polished wood and costly cologne, a sensory reminder of power. Trump's voice was smooth but edged with authority. "Let's not waste time," he declared, voice ringing through the silence. His demeanor was relaxed, yet his eyes betrayed a calculating mind. "The first blow was struck, we're glad you're here, but let's get to the point, your ties with Russia. Talk to me." His words cut through the air, sharp and deliberate. Was this a warning? A challenge? Everyone in the room felt the weight of his gaze. Rakhmo responded with calm steadiness. He looked Trump directly in the eyes, unshaken. The room's atmosphere shifted, the tension rising like a storm gathering on the horizon. The delegation from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan shifted uncomfortably behind him, their expressions unreadable. They understood, this was no ordinary meeting. It was a clash of worlds, where every flicker of a glance or tightened fist spoke of hidden fears and unspoken truths. The conflict was palpable. Who would blink first? The room, silent but electric, awaited the next move. Trump leaned forward slightly, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. "Mr. Mamali," he began, voice steady and commanding, "we appreciate your presence. But you need to start by clarifying your connection to Russia." His words echoed like a shot across a battlefield. As if the walls themselves dared to listen, Rakhmo felt the echo of that challenge deep inside. Did they not see that the very fabric of geopolitics was unraveling before their eyes? The room seemed to vibrate with the intensity of this confrontation. Could diplomacy survive this onslaught? The stakes had never been higher. Rakhmo, undaunted, answered softly but with resolve. President Trump, he said, geography is not a choice. It is a reality. His voice grew firmer, penetrating the tense silence. We are neighbors. We share mountains, rivers, and borders, not ideology. He pressed on, eyes unwavering. The region responds to strength or neglect, and our actions are guided by necessity, not allegiance. Our commitment to independence is clear. Do not mistake proximity for dependency. The words hung in the air, powerful and precise. This was a rallying cry, an assertion that Tajikistan was no pawn. Trump's response was icy but calculated. This is not just about geography, he retorted, voice carrying a hint of threat. It's about allegiance. And you're too close to Russia for comfort. His tone was a blade, slicing through diplomacy like a sharp knife. The room held its breath, every seat, every gesture under scrutiny. The alliance, the balance of power, teetered on this fragile edge. For a moment, silence reigned, then came the quiet storm of what would follow. Could the fragile peace hold, or was this the spark that would ignite a global conflict? The answer lay just beyond the horizon,